experiences. So a lot of questions and answers I'm hoping on, your questions around that, because I find there's a lot of fear for people about dying, about transitioning, and what is that going to look like? Am I going to be judged? All of those things. So I want to spend a lot of time on that today, and then just give you some tools and tips and things to help you all move forward in life, because the more we can make our choices from a place of love, not fear, the more productive and better our lives will be. It's just that simple. But we get trained to make them from fear from a very small age, right? When your mom's like, watch out, you're going to get hurt. Don't do that. This is, it just gets ingrained in us, even when we're not thinking about it. I just had this conversation. I have a really good friend who has like a little 5-week-old baby, and we were at lunch the other day, and she said, how am I going to raise him? I don't want to raise him to be afraid. So watch out, you're going to fall down. She's like, how? And so we were talking about ways to raise him with other words. And I said, well, maybe it's just like, be aware about what's around you, because that's really not a negative thing. And that's open, and it leaves you open to spirit world, right? And it doesn't start shutting things down, and you're not choosing from fear. You're just choosing like, oh, I'm aware of what's around me. So anyway, it was kind of a fun conversation. My kids are past that, so I don't have to start thinking about how I'm going to raise them and in a world of love and not fear. But are we ready? Should we get started? Are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
I'm ready. I have notes right here.
All right. So we will have, we're going to have plenty of breaks, plenty of time for questions. So if you want to write questions down as we're going, I'm going to make sure that we address those. And I'm just going to start. So I'm going to start. I am looking at my notes. So when you see me look down, that's what I'm looking at. So for those of you who don't know my story, I've had 3 near-death experiences. So basically I've made it to the other side 3 times and come back 3 times. So I tell everyone the next time is my last time. Like, I'm going, I'm not, there's no fourth. It's just done when we get to that point. But let me tell you a little bit about my near-death experiences, because each one was amazing, powerful, and very different. There was nothing like, I didn't keep ending up in the same spot. It was different every time. And each time I was given this expansion, is what I would call it. So I'm going to even start before that, when I was 12 years old. So a lot of people like to ask me, when did your mediumship ability start and all of that? It's kind of interesting, because to me, they started when I was 12, when my mom's dad passed away. And I started connecting with him and getting information and feeling him and seeing him and having dream visits. And I would tell my mom the things that he would say, and she would say, well, I know you think he would say that if he was still here, And so I kind of quickly learned like, oh, this is just my relationship with me and grandpa, and I don't need to share his information with anybody else. It's just between us. So I had this awareness. And then also growing up, I was raised Catholic. And the beautiful part of that was I had angels and saints and Mother Mary. Like, I had a whole team of people that could help me. There was never this point in my life where I didn't feel like I was supported by the universe. Although there were a lot of things that they would say in Sunday school that I was like, really? Like, it just didn't feel right. But there was a lot that also resonated with me, in the sense like I felt like I had this whole team of support that I didn't even know. But if I lost something, I'd pray to St. Anthony. And if I was worried about my dog, I'd pray to St. Francis. And if, I needed help on my travels, I'd pray to St. Christopher. So that idea of having this spirit team or this sense of support was actually naturally already there for me. And I resonated very strongly with that. So anyway, fast forwarding, my first near-death experience was in April 2000. And I was actually at the hospital that day because my niece had been born. So we were at the hospital visiting her. And as we were there, I saw one of my friends from high school who was an RN on the unit, and we were standing out in the hallway talking. And what happened was I had this massive seizure. And I don't remember the seizure at all, but what I do remember is opening my eyes, and I was laying with my head in my grandma's lap, and my grandma had transitioned about 2 years before that. And I remember looking at her and thinking, I mean, she was the youngest, healthiest version of grandma that I could remember. So I still recognized her. If she had shown herself to me, a lot of times on the other side, their energy comes through about 30 years old. So even if they live to be 95, they come through with this young, healthy place. But obviously, if she had come through as a 30-year-old, I might have been like, who is this? Because I don't remember grandma as 30. So she showed me her as the youngest, healthiest version of her. She's kneeling. I'm laying on the ground with my head in her lap, and I start looking around, and I'm in this beautiful white room. And in this room, the walls are not solid, even though they're solid, but it's like every cell, every molecule is alive, and the room is breathing. And every molecule or cell, whatever you want to call it, in this room is truly radiating this light and love of God or source or the divine. And I use the word God a lot just because it's natural for me, but I always mean source, divine, whatever, higher being, whatever your term for that, that's what I'm talking about. And I was just kind of, oh my gosh. And I was feeling this unconditional love. I was feeling this wholeness and completeness that I literally had never felt in my body before, but this was my body, mind, spirit feeling them. And I was just looking at my grandma. And as I was laying there just trying to absorb everything around me, I looked up and I saw next to her this angel. And this angel was about 12 to 14 feet tall. It was huge. And I knew they would be big. I had no idea they were that big. Huge. And as I was looking at her, I thought in my head, I thought, what is your name? And she answered me. She said, Madeline. And I was kind of like, oh my God, she heard what I was thinking. Like I had not really thought about telepathy before. So I was kind of a little bit like, wow, I was just blown away. And I was really aware that she was one of my guardian angels and that I was in this place of peace and love and contentment beyond what we even have words for. So that's one thing I want to say. When you have a near-death experience, it's really hard to find the words that capture the emotions and the feelings that you were, because it is happening on a level where there aren't words. It's literally telepathic, it's energy, it's completeness at its finest, to say the least. And as I laid there and I looked at her, I really just found myself soaking in the situation. And I remember seeing her wings, and it was so interesting because I kind of expected them to be like birds' wings and feathers, but what they actually were was light. It was like this iridescent light radiating off of her. And these wings were so huge and so long. I want to talk about them almost like spanning the scope of eternity. It was like they just trailed off forever. There was not an end. And I really became aware, like, this is her energy. This is her light. Like, the wings are not these feathered wings that I had expected all of my life. And it was absolutely beautiful. My grandma didn't say anything to me while I was there. She was just this beautiful, comforting energy that held me while I connected with my angels. And then the next thing I know, I hear them yelling, code, 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 because I had quit breathing and I was already in the hospital. So they were calling the code team, and it was like, boom, I was back in my body. And when I was back in my body, I remember it took me so long to process what had happened in my mind. Or what had happened, but to process it on my human level, because I had known angels were real. I had always felt connected with them, but I had never had an encounter like that before. And then I was thinking about that room that I was in, how the walls were like alive, and it was almost like breathing and illuminated. There wasn't a light on the ceiling, but the whole room was light. So it was really this point in time where I realized nothing had to come from the outside. It was all within. And so that's part of when we say tune into your light or tap into the light within, there is this truth. And that truth is that spark of God or that spark of the divine that is within all of us. And that light is already there. And so that room, I remember looking at the ceiling, there were no light bulbs on it, but it was very much lit up, and there was no switch, nothing like that. And so it's all energy. It was all energy. So I come back into my body, and obviously I had a headache because I had hit the floor and had a seizure and all this. And so they admitted me into the hospital, and everything was fine. And they never really came up with anything. You know, they checked my heart, they did all this. They never really came up with what triggered this seizure. It was like, well, maybe it was medication you were on. That was the closest we could get, because there was never a concrete answer. So that's my first one. I come back from that and I am more aware than I was. And I feel like I'm getting more messages, not bombarded with them, but I'm more connected. How can you not be after you have that experience? And I am more aware of angels. And I will tell you this, I was in that moment in a place with so much love. I grew up feeling loved. So I didn't have, you know, all this in my past, but I had never felt that loved in my life. And I came back feeling so loved. Not necessarily even by the humans around me, but I knew I was loved at a level that the human part of me could not comprehend. It truly has to be felt on this soul level, because our humanness doesn't have the words and the comprehension for it. So I took that with me from that first NDE. Then I had a second one about 6 years later. Yeah, you're muted, Jamie. You're mute.
Of course I am. When was that again?
So that one was in April 2000.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so it's kind
I'm
of,
gonna have to put the timeline together, right?
Right, yeah, it's about every 6 years. About every 6 years I try to check out, so.
You're about how old at that time? Like 20?
I was at that time, you know, that's a good question. I was 20, I was born in 73. So I was in my early 20s.
Well, you look damn good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We can thank my anesthetician for that. Anyway, give credit where it's due, right? I
mean, one more question, Michelle. Who else, if anybody, has had near-death experiences?
No,
I haven't had one, but I've heard of the one thing. I just wrote a comment was I was listening to this podcast and a woman had it. And she said the same thing. She goes, the trees, the flowers, everything is alive. And when you said that about the room and the cells, I went, because I'm like, how do you even explain that? And this woman was saying the same thing. And so that just resonated like, oh my gosh, that I can't even put my brain around that.
Yeah. And so, you know what, they just told me, which was interesting, because they've never said this to me before, but there's no dead space. So you know how we walk into a room here and we think like oxygen could be dead space, even though we're breathing it? There's no such thing as dead space there. Every single thing is alive. So every oxygen molecule, or, you know, I mean, I remember feeling like I was breathing, but so I was still connected to what, there's like a body in that realm that I felt connected to. I certainly didn't feel like I was having a hard time breathing or anything, but that's exactly it. There is no dead space there. There's no filler. There's no filler.
For the trees and the flower, just trying to think of that, the trees, the walls, everything's alive. And she said in this podcast, it's nothing we can understand on Earth.
Right.
But it's there. So
absolutely.
Anyway, I just thought that's amazing.
It is amazing. And the other thing I will tell you, that what I believe from my 3 near-death experiences and from my mediumship, is that that realm, that heavenly realm, it's right here, right now. It's just like it's layered on top of us. So it's not really that I had to go to the stratosphere and then out into the universe to get there. It's right here, right now. It's just about tapping into it.
That's kind of what she said too. And it's amazing.
Yeah. So it's amazing.
There's a really good movie out there with Robin Williams. It's called What Dreams May Come.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good depiction of what goes on beyond. And I'd recommend anybody watch. Robin Williams is a genius anyway, but What Dreams May Come.
That one is amazing. I've seen that one. And have you had any experiences, near-death experiences, Cindy?
Yes.
You have. Okay. I was going to say, I feel that from you. That beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to watch that.
Very blessed.
Yeah. Well, it really helps you to know that you're not living this life alone, and that this, this life. So I will tell you how my son and I, this was a few years ago, he's 15 now, so he was probably around 12. And we were talking about mediumship and what I do and how does this all work? And I explained to him, I said, okay, it's like this. You're sitting in your game room, you're in your chair, you have your soda, you have your air conditioning going, you have your headphones on, and he's playing with kids all around the world, right? Who are on the Xbox too. And they're listening and they're hearing each other. And he's screaming. Like you think he's really being murdered. And they're, oh my God, sniper on the right, like screaming, and they're screaming at each other. And yet when he dies in the video game, he gets up, he leaves, he's fine, he's not crying, he knows that it's okay. And I was saying, there's this part of life that is truly like that video game where our whole soul is sitting there and it's like, hey, let's team up, you go in and you play this, and I'm gonna play that, and I'll be this character and you be that character. And we go in and we're screaming at each other and we're yelling and we're all passionate and we are sure that this is it. And then when it's over, our soul's like, well, that was fun. I learned a lot. Okay, time to go, And that's really, in a way, and it doesn't feel like that when we're in it, but I can relate it to him because when he's in there on the video game in the middle of a battle, you wouldn't think that it's a video game. You would think he's literally being attacked by, I don't know what, in the playroom. So there's that energy, but on a soul level, that's how life is for our soul. It's truly the illusion of death. The way he gets up and walks out of there after his character died, he's not crying. He might be thinking about, hey, next time in the game, if I see the sniper on the right, I'm turning left, or maybe what that looks like, right? It's this learning experience, but he doesn't walk out of there and cry, just like our souls don't cry when we die. Our soul's like, oh, good game on, that was good. So looking at life through that perspective is really amazing. And then he said to me something about mom. He said, so you're the input, as in the medium, you're the input. You're telling me what they're saying. And I said, well, yes, thank you for putting it that way. I guess I am the input. I'll help you hear what you're not hearing. But really interesting. So anyway, okay. Near-death experience number 2, much more traumatic. So this one was in May 2006. So my son, the one that I was just talking about, he's a good little intro into this, not planned, but it works. He was born April 1st. And what happened was I had multiple complications after I had him. So for 4 out of the 6 weeks following having him, off and on, I was in the hospital. So I would be in the hospital for 5 days on IV antibiotics. I was running fevers. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. You must have an infection, this and that. I was just going downhill. So for about 5 days I'd be in, they'd send me home for 2 days, you're fine now. And then I'd start running fevers and be sick. I'd be admitted again. So this was the process for about 6 weeks after I had him. And then they said to me, okay, we need to do a DNC. So I'm assuming most of you know what that is. If not, I'll tell you, it's when they basically go in and clean out your uterus, because they were like, maybe there's something, they thought there was something maybe still in there from his birth that hadn't gotten taken out, a piece of placenta or whatever this is. And the night before, I had this really horrible feeling. I just knew I should not have this procedure, but I was literally so tired of being exhausted and sick. And I had an infant, I had a 2-year-old, and I had a 4-year-old at the time. And I just wanted to be home with my kids, and I was tired of being sick. And I had this feeling I should not do it. But they assured me it's this really quick 45-minute procedure. You'll be fine. It'll solve all our problems. And it was really what I wanted to hear. So this is something I want to tell you guys, like, pay attention to your gut, because when it's right and when it's not. And my gut was telling me this isn't going to go well. And yet I chose to listen to what I wanted to hear, not what I knew. 2 really big different things. And people do it all the time. It's really easy to do. If you're telling me what I want to hear, I'm going to believe you. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Same thing. So I go in the next morning for this procedure, and I was worried. And so I talked to the doctor. Oh, it'll be fine. Talk to the anesthesiologist. Piece of cake. We'll have you out of here. And 45 minutes, and it just didn't feel right. But I went ahead. And during this procedure, at some point, the OBGYN ruptured my uterus with this fade or whatever they call that they clean your uterus. And he actually missed the aorta on the right side of my body by less than a millimeter. It was so close they couldn't even stitch it. So they called in an emergency laparoscopic surgeon during this time. But what I remember is laying on the gurney in the operating room. And I had this beautiful white shepherd. Her name was Tahoe. And she had transitioned a couple years before that. She was about 102, 103 pounds. And at night when she was in the house, she would always come up and lay her head on my bed, like just to check on me, look around, make sure I'm okay, go to the next bed, make sure they're okay. She was just this beautiful, beautiful soul. I see her come in to the operating room. She lays her head on my gurney and we're gone. We're gone. We're gone. And we were on this phenomenal beach, white sand. And the sand though felt like walking on clouds. It was bouncy and fluffy and it didn't feel like sand at all. And I'm looking around once again, every single cell, molecule, whatever you want to call these, are alive. Every drop of water in the ocean next to us was alive. Every cell and every leaf on every plant was like singing praises to God, divine, the universe, with light and love, and literally just radiating the light from within. It was unbelievable. And so as we're on this beach, I'm looking at her, once again, telepathy. I know how she's feeling. I know that she's so happy that I'm there. We were so connected. I don't actually remember touching her. There was no need to, because I had such a connection with her energetically. It wasn't like I needed to pet her and love her, because we were doing that, even though we weren't touching. And we're on this beach and we are running and running and running. And I know that if I go down around the curve of the island, I'm not gonna come back. And then I also am aware that as we're running and running, like we're not hot, we don't get tired, we don't get thirsty. It didn't feel like exercise, it was just movement. And then I'm really aware that it comes down to this. It was literally about the very, very, very most present moment. It was each step and each breath. There's this period of time where I wasn't worried about anything. And I tend to be a worrier. So for me to be in this place where I wasn't worried about where are my babies, where are my kids, where's this, how am I getting back? It never crossed my mind. It was just each step and each breath. And as we ran and ran, so here's the funny part about this. Okay, I literally tell people, if you see me running, call 911. Like, I don't run, that's an emergency. You are not gonna see me going for a jog or like, that doesn't happen. So it's kind of funny when you think that that's my near-death experience in heaven. I'm running and running, and the human me is like, no, I don't do that. That's, so, but we have this amazing experience. So as we're running on this beach, and I'm aware of, once again, everything being alive, of this unconditional love, this completeness, this wholeness that we literally do not have here. I'm telling you, look at the person that you consider whole the most out of everyone you know in your life. It's a fraction of what it is when you get to that heavenly realm. It's a fraction of it. And this wholeness. And as we're running on the beach, all of a sudden, I'm aware that my son, who's about 6 weeks old at the time, is energetically like calling me, and he's scared that I'm going to leave. And I feel myself. So this is the soul thing. This gets a little confusing, but when we're a soul, we can be in more than one place at a time. So there's this piece of me that stays on the beach with my dog. And there's this piece of me that energetically goes to my 6-week-old son. And he's scared that I'm going to leave. And I think that makes sense to me, right? As like a new human coming into this world, you're like, hey, I got a long life. Like, I thought we had a deal. You can't leave now, right? Who's going to mother me? And so I remember going to him, and I remember saying to him, I will find a way to stay, because I knew I could not leave him, and I did not know how I was going to stay. And then it was like, I automatically just started praying and asking for help and saying, I can't leave now. I'm not ready. I need to stay. I need to stay. I need help. And I remember, so I don't know if you're aware of the Christ light. It's not exactly related to Jesus, but it's like this beautiful white healing light. Although I really felt like Jesus was with me too at that moment. I remember this white light filling up the operating room and knowing that I was going to be able to stay. And then the next thing I know is I'm waking up in the post-op and they said, well, I look at the clock on the wall and it had been 3.5 hours. So my 45-minute procedure turned into the 3.5-hour procedure because apparently while the surgeon was in there, the emergency surgeon repairing the first rupture, the other doctor ruptured the fundus of my uterus. So it was ruptured in 2 places. And it turned into this 3-hour, 45-minute process. And I remember looking at that on the wall and not really knowing what had happened, but knowing that I had been in a place again with no time, with so much love, with so much compassion, and yet I was able to come back. And so here's the power in that I really, and it honestly took me years to process that whole experience because there was so much happening, but there's a lot. So when people have NDEs, they're not just happening on one level. They're happening on multiple levels because our soul is multidimensional and it's very wise and can tune into 1 million things at one time, not like our human body. So while I was with my dog running on the beach, I was also with my son and I was also praying for help and the ability to stay and for a miracle to come in. Having said that, my soul's no different than yours. We can all usher those miracles into our life. It was just the ability that I had at that moment to realize I could do that. And so there's an empowerment that I want to give you from that, where it's like truly our souls are cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways. And if my soul can do that, your soul can do that. So really being able to see these levels in that near-death experience where I'm like, okay, there are multiple things happening. A lot of times people will come back and they'll just tell you what their human memory of it is. And that's very valid. But to me, a lot of times that also says they're not tapping into the other levels of what were happening. So I come back, I get to raise my son. It took me 3 months to get back to functioning at 80%. Because it had been such a difficult process leading up to it and the surgery. But I remember being in the hospital room afterwards, and they actually had given me someone else's medication. They had run it in my IV. Like, this couldn't have gone much worse, let me just tell you. And I started, what they said was hallucinating. But I'm not so sure that I was. I mean, I think I might have been, but there was this other part where I actually felt like I almost was able to see with my soul for a little while longer before I totally came back into my body. Because I remember seeing my son, who was 6 weeks old, and he was like this big, sitting in a chair near me. I remember seeing my beautiful white shepherd in the room. So I don't know how much of it was truly hallucinating and how much of it was I was still seeing through my soul at that point in time. But anyway, 1 million things went wrong, but also the one thing I needed went right, which was I got to stay. And then the next day, the surgeon who had come in to do the emergency surgery came into my room. And he said to me, he said, Michelle, he said, I don't know what to tell you. There was somebody watching over you yesterday because you really shouldn't be here. And I was just like, wow, I don't think most surgeons say that, especially when they're worried about a lawsuit, you know? But it was, and it was. And so it was very life-changing, very eye-opening, very soul-opening. And then I kind of said, well, I got 3 little kids. I got to get healthy, and went back into mom mode. And so even though I was opened up again on a higher level, there's still this part of me that was really focused on the human part of who I was and what I had to do. And yeah, so do you guys have any questions about that? That was a lot.
My one question was, what is timeline? So there is no time.
There was no time.
There's no time at
There
all.
was no time. No, I have no idea how long I was gone. I don't know in the human time if it was 1 second or 1 year or there's literally no time.
And then also I think it's cool, like, because I always wonder about animals, you know, our animals, how do they know us? How are they going to find us? what happens to them and who's going to watch them when they're up there. These are what, what keeps me up at night. So that's like a nice confirmation.
Yeah, that they are absolutely fine. They are waiting for you, and they will be the first ones to greet you when you get there.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about like how you opened up?
Yeah, so I just started getting more knowing after that. So more knowing, more visits from my grandparents who transitioned, more messages from angels and all of that. And there was this part of me that was still really determined to just stay in my human construct, which is like, I'm a mom, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Like, that's nice, I hear you, thank you, and just keep going. It was just this part of me that was very sure that my purpose here was to be a mom, and that even though I knew I had this support and love, and I was getting more messages and knowing more things, I was still very focused on the human part, on what I needed to do. And there was also this part of me, honestly, that was fearful, because I had been raised Catholic, and my mom would say, Michelle, if there's good, there's bad. How do you know you're connecting with something good and when there's bad out there and there's evil in the world, and all of these things. So there was also that part of me, I think, that was like scared, a little bit scared of the mediumship, and then also scared because it had never been a part of my life, and I wasn't ready to step into that or open that door, even though that door was open. So as long as I just kept getting messages for me, I could just kind of be like, okay, thank you, and just keep going, right? No one I had to share it with, nothing I really had to do. Helped me stay in the closet a long time. Yeah. Okay, so next near-death experience. This is my big one. Let me take a drink of water. So the next one happens November 1st, 2011. So for people who like numbers, that's 11-111. So there's a lot of ones right there. And I was in my kitchen, and we have 14-foot ceilings in my house. So about 12 feet up, I have the candles where you put the battery in, and every night they turn on at the same time and all of that. So my oldest was at school. She was in 5th grade, and she was in like an after school program. And my younger two were home. They were 5 and 8 at the time. And I said to them, as soon as I put this candle back up here, because I had gotten out the ladder and I was up there, I said, we're going to go get your sister. And as I got up there to put it in the thing on the wall, I remember knowing, like, I felt the ladder start to shift, and I was like, oh, this is going to hurt. And I knew it was going to go down. And it literally, I felt myself get ripped out of my body. It felt like I got ripped out from behind. But I was facing myself. So I could see my body suspended in the air. I could see the ladder suspended in the air, but I got like ripped out, and I was watching this. And I found myself standing with these 3 people, 2 males and a female. And one male was Hawaiian, one male was Asian, and the female was Egyptian. And I had never met them in this life. And yet I felt like I knew them so well. And they almost felt like family. I was just kind of like, wow. And so there was nothing that felt like strangers or who are you, nothing like that. And we're standing there, and I'm watching my body suspended in the air and the ladder suspended in the air. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit the floor in like a second. And they said to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay, or do you want to go? And as they asked me that question, I saw this beautiful angel, not Madeline, a different angel, come in and was like literally, so if my body's on the right, the ladder's kind of in the middle, the angel would be on the left. Come in. And I knew that this angel was waiting for me to decide what I wanted to do. So I knew that if I decided that I was going home, I was going with the angel. I knew that if I decided to stay, the angel would make something happen so that I could stay. And I didn't know what that was. And I just kept watching this, and I was like, this is crazy. My body's going to hit the floor in a second, and I have forever to decide if I want to stay or go. And so it was kind of funny, because in that part, there's that human level, right? I'm stuck in my mind, and I'm like, How can I have forever? There's no hurry, but my body's going to hit the floor, but I have forever to decide. It's just, so I'm going back and forth. And these people are lovely. I mean, I'm just feel so connected to them. I've known them forever, and yet I've never met them before. And I'm trying to decide what to do. And then I can see my son and my daughter right there in the kitchen with me. And I know, once again, those kids, they pull me back every time. I'm this close, people, and then I come back for the kids. I know, but I know at that moment, I can't leave them. Like, I can't do this to them. So much happens in that second, because now I have a timeline. I can tell you it had to have been about a second, and yet it felt like forever, because I couldn't have taken longer than that for my body to fall 10 feet, right? At that moment, here we go with the soul level. I'm watching my kids. I'm knowing I can't leave them. I don't want to leave them and have them do life without me. And then I'm also being told, Michelle, this is really cute. You're a great mom. There's more to your purpose. There's more to your purpose. If you're going back this time, there's more. I don't want to use the word expect, because I don't feel like God or angels or the divine expect more from me, but it was almost like they had to remind me, your soul had a bigger plan. And yes, this is a huge plan, and raising 3 amazing humans is going to impact the world, but there are other ways your soul wanted to do that. And it's time for you to remember, and time for you to be bold, and time for you to step into who you are on that huge soul level. And there was almost, what I want to say, an agreement that if I came back this time, there was no more playing around. Like, you're in, this is it, we're doing it. And so I absolutely agreed. And then the next thing I know, well, I don't actually remember this part, but obviously as I'm falling, I hit the back of my head on the corner of my granite island, and I missed my brainstem by 1/2 inch. So I survived the fall by 1/2 inch. So I know that beautiful angel that I saw, and I literally started telling people as soon as like I could talk, like, an angel moved my head, an angel moved my head. It was a 1/2 inch. And so it was huge. So I had a traumatic brain injury from that. I had a 5.5 inch skull fracture on the back of my head, where your brainstem goes into your skull. I'm trying to show you, it fractured all the way through, but it missed my brainstem. I had a brain bleed. I lost my taste, my smell, my equilibrium, part of my hearing, part of my vision. And I was unconscious. Oh, and I broke my arm, but that was the easy part to get over. I was unconscious on the floor. And part of the blessing was actually I had no external bleeding. So my 2 kids, who were 5 and 8, didn't see me laying in this pool of blood and think I was dead. All of my bleeding was internal. So I looked like I was asleep, which is a blessing for them and the trauma they had to work through. So I'm going to continue with the story, because it doesn't end there. So then what happens? My kids call 911. My daughter, Sophie, called 911, and she was the one who got me help. And they take me to one hospital, and then they decide that I need to be moved to Barrow, which is Barrow. It's a neurological hospital here in Phoenix. It's like world renowned. And so they take me there, and the brain bleed stops on its own. So I didn't need surgery for that. And luckily, even though I had a 5.5 inch skull fracture and I hit so head, my skull didn't indent, it stayed flush. So they didn't have to do surgery for that. So I'm very blessed in all of these ways from this trauma. I was in the hospital for 10 days in ICU for the first few, and then they moved me to a step down unit. But I literally couldn't even sit up because I would vomit. Because my equilibrium was off. And so I had to go through therapy to literally even be able to sit up while I was in the hospital. And then I came home. So I get home, the middle of November, the 10th, somewhere around there. And at that point in time, I needed so much help still. And we're kind of in survival mode, and we're just kind of moving through it. And then I get my cast off. And so, my kids were young. So the minute my cast was off, everybody was kind of like, oh, she's fine. The cast is off. You know what I mean? It's like, never mind that my brain is still like scrambled and trying to function, but the cast is off. Mom's good. And so anyway, we go through Christmas, and And it was really hard in the sense that when you lose your smell, so here's the gift of smell, it keeps you in the moment and it makes you present. Even if it's like, oh, the garbage stinks, it needs to go out. It keeps you right here, right now, right? And I missed that. And I will tell you what I missed the most was the smell of my kids when I would hug them. I missed that connection of like smelling my kids. And so I quickly turned to this space of gratitude where I was like, okay, all of these abilities that I've lost, all of these senses, it's okay. I don't need them to live. I can absolutely survive the way I am and raise my kids. And that became the most important thing to me. But I got something which most people aren't aware of, and it's called phantom taste and smell. So you've heard of phantom pain, and that'll be like someone loses a limb, but it still hurts. So I got phantom taste and smell, and it was horrible. It was basically like rotting dead bodies, and that was the only thing I could taste or smell. So if we walked by Starbucks, the coffee smell, it didn't smell like that to me. It smelled like burning dead bodies, would trigger me, and then I'd have to run outside and vomit. So I started having to deal with this huge challenge because I didn't know what would trigger it. And sometimes there were no smells that would trigger it, but it happened. And when food is just a texture in your mouth or either a really bad flavor and texture, you truly lose your desire to eat. You're like, oh, no, thank you. So I really tried to focus on the gratitude that I was here, I was alive, I was going to raise my kids. I hadn't lost anything I couldn't live without. We get through the holidays, we get into January, and my son, who was 5 at the time, said to me, he started talking to me, my mom, my mother-in-law, and saying, you know, Mom, I didn't need to be there, because he had tried to call 911 and his call didn't go through. We thought he must have been so scared in the moment he dialed 991, or we didn't know, but he started getting really depressed, and he would say, I didn't need to be there. Sophie could do it without me. And we said, but Josh, you opened the door for the policeman. You let him in. That was helpful. It did not matter what we said. We couldn't comfort him. So towards the end of January, my grandfather, who passed away when I was 12 years old, came through to me in this massive visit, and he literally manifested in front of me in my kitchen. Now, as a medium, most people don't manifest in front of me, but he did. And so I literally said to him, I said, the first thing I said was, it's been so long since I've seen you. And his response was, I knew it would seem like that to you. And I was just kind of like, because in my humanness, I wasn't realizing how connected we were, right? I thought I was getting a pop-in visit here or there from him. I still wasn't at the point yet where I could realize that our loved ones on the other side actually really know what's happening in our life every single day. So he's talking to me, and he's talking about my accident. He's talking about my son being very good with electronics. And then he says to me before he leaves, he says, Michelle, you need to get the 911 recording. There's something on there you should know. And he's gone. And I'm like, what? Because I had never thought of that, never even crossed my mind. So I order it. It takes a couple of weeks to come in, and I get it. And I put it in and play it. And the first thing I hear is they say, 911, what's your emergency? And in this little broken voice, I hear my son say, Sophie, what do I say? And then he lays the phone down. And for the next minute and a half, you can hear 911 trying to get their attention and saying, can you hear us? What's happening? It's 911. And then you hear, after about a minute and a half of that, he says he's going to go push the alarm, the house alarm panic button to get help. And my daughter, who's 8, says, hold on, let me try calling 911 first. And she hangs up the phone and dials it, and then her call goes through. And they actually connect her to the firemen, and you can hear them saying, honey, what's happening? What's your mom doing? And she's explaining. I mean, it was unbelievable, right? My 2 true little heroes. But here was the big piece. My son's call went through. And what had happened, I think, is that he must have literally dialed as soon as it happened. And in the trauma of the moment, set the phone down and forgot that he had called or thought he had tried to, but it was gone. So he came home from kindergarten that day. And I said to him, I said, Josh, your 911 call went through. It was like lifting this 10,000 pound weight off this 5-year-old little boy. You could see his self-worth coming back in, his self-value coming back in. You could see just like literally his posture change. He was like, oh, I did it. I did it. And so we would go out to eat and the server would say like, oh, how was your day? And he'd be like, great, my 911 call went through. And they'd be like, okay, you know, but you could just see that it played out in so many different ways. This is my first huge visit after that traumatic brain injury, is the fact that my grandfather came through and gave me life-changing information for one of the most important people in my life that I had no idea existed. And because of that, I was able to change the course of my son's life. And this is from, you know, my grandfather, he passed away when I was 12. There's 20, 30 years difference between, he never walked this earth at the time that my son did. But for him to come through and give me that information and know the details and be able to change the course of my son's life, it was unbelievable. And so after that, I started getting more mediumship messages for other people. I had a friend whose husband had transitioned himself, and I got a message from him for her. And so I realized, I'm like, oh gosh, this is, yeah, like I can't ignore this anymore. I can't pretend that it's just in my head. It's just me. This is actually something that I have to start sharing. And so it took me to this place of great comfort and great fear, both at the same time. Comfort in knowing that I was not alone on this journey. Great fear in knowing I was not the person I was before I fell off the ladder. And I didn't know how the people in my life were going to respond to that. And, you know, at that point in time, a lot of my friends were worried about their kids learning first grade math and housebreaking. And here I am talking to dead people, you know, like, how do you even like relate to those two things? They're so different, right? So it was really quite a challenging time for me. Do you guys have questions about that? I mean, that's a lot in that story.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So before you came back in any of your near-death experiences, did you know or have a feeling that like what the physical impact to you would be? Like, you know, this last one, did you know that you would have a cracked skull and how that would impact your life to help you decide?
Yeah, right. Now, you know, not that I consciously remember. I remember the human part of me knowing the ladder was going to fall and being like, oh, this is going to hurt.
Mhm.
But then I was literally yanked out of my body. So I didn't feel any part of that impact. So a lot of times too, when I'm reading for people, I'll say that they'll be like, oh, my loved one suffered so much, whatever, they died in this car accident or this or that. And I say, not necessarily, because a lot of times we are pulled out of our bodies in ways that, yes, your body goes through that trauma. Yes, I had that recovery, but yeah. So I would just say, I think that, I'm trying to get the right words here, that there's so much that happens on so many levels all the time. The minute that we release the only human construct, we're open to more. We're open to more. And I did not know in my mind that I remember, I do not remember them telling me, you're going to have these symptoms. This is going to be your recovery. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave me that, because truly, I mean, the doctors would say to me, you're so lucky to be alive. You're here by half an inch. You're so lucky. This is a miracle. This is that. This is, you know, and so everyone kept telling me, wow, this is amazing, you know? So I was able to live in a place of gratitude, like I said. Yeah.
Did you ever, I guess, connect with the 3 people that had helped, or 3 angels that had helped you, or did you ever figure out like who they were? Or
I did. I figured out later on that they were my life guides. And that was a word that was not even in my vocabulary when I had that head injury. So later on, a few months later, I figured out they were my life guides. And that's interesting because I want to bring this up. Probably a couple months after that. So after the 911 call had been figured out and all of those things, I was having lunch with my son because he was in half day kindergarten, because I always kept my babies home as long as I could. So if he could go half day, then I would do that. And we were having lunch and I was eating and I was like so tired of just filling the food in my mouth and not tasting it. And I said to him, more speaking out loud, I said, oh, Josh, when do you think I'm going to get my taste and smell back? And he said, well, you need to pray about it more, Mom. And I said, well, who said that to you? Because I thought for sure it was going to be my mom who had said that to him. And he said, my life guide, Hanson. And I said, what? Because that was not a word in our vocabulary. That was not a word.
Specifically Hanson.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't know anyone with that as a first name or a last name or we knew no one with that name. And he said, my life guide, Hanson. And I said, well, what does Hanson look like? And he's like, well, he's about as tall as Dad, and he's got brown hair, and he this and that. And he said, if you pray about it more, it'll come back. And I was just like, what? What? So anyway, to finish up I do want to say this. At 6 months out, the neurologist said to me, he said, in the next 6 months, you're only going to get 1 to 2% better. You're not going to get your taste and smell back. You're not going to get your hearing back. You're not going to, and he told me, I literally came home and was massively depressed for 24 hours. And then at some point, and I can only guess it was Spirit that said this to me, and I was wise enough to grab onto it. They said, that's not your story. And so I said, okay, that's not my story. I don't know when or how this will happen, but that is not my story. And then what happened later on, this is a couple years later, I found out about a healer here in Phoenix area in Paradise Valley. Her name is Sarah O'Meara, and she works with the Holy Spirit. And I had a friend who was dying of cancer. And so she and I had gone to about 8 of these sessions, and her cancer had gone into remission. They had, without any treatment, the tumor was shrinking. And so she had called me and she said, let's go to the Christmas service. And I honestly did not want to go. It's like Christmas. It's the busiest time of the year. I was tired. It was at night. And she said, please go with me. And so I said, okay. So I went with her, and it was huge. There were probably 200 people there. And the way that she does it is the night before, the Holy Spirit comes to her and gives her a list of things that will be healed. So she'll say, this is what happened with me. She said, so someone with back pain. So anyone with back pain at that point in time then stands up. It doesn't matter how you get it or not. So that night she's going through her list and she says, someone who has back pain and fell off the ladder. And I'm like, so about 10 people stand up, and I'm thinking, oh, it's got to be that person or that person, right? She starts on one side of the room, works her way all the way around. I'm the last person standing. And I said to her, I'm like in the microphone, and I was like kind of choked up. I said, I fell off the ladder. And she's like, well, God knows you fell off the ladder. And I was just like, okay. So I could feel, as she started talking to me, literally the Holy Spirit moved through my body, and it was warm and it was tingling. I felt my spine. I felt the back pain start to go away. And I started crying because it had been a long time. It was that unconditional love again in the human form, right? Or in the spirit form. And I went home that night and I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what just happened, but that was amazing. And I literally felt the Holy Spirit. My back feels better. I'm not in pain because I landed on my back. Obviously, after I hit my head, I landed on the back, and I had had scoliosis before and all of that. So it was just more back pain. Well, the next day I get up to let the dogs out, and I open the door and I smell winter, that smell of winter. I hadn't smelled it in 3 or 4 years. And then my daughter wanted a cup of hot chocolate. I made her hot chocolate. I could smell the hot chocolate. And then my son said he wanted a hot dog. I made him a hot dog, and it didn't smell like burning dead bodies. It smelled like a hot dog. So I received this healing in so many ways, on so many levels, that was more than she had even called out. I thought I was just standing up for my back pain, and it was overwhelming. I never again had phantom taste or smell. And I would say that the smell and taste I do have is at least 95% accurate now. So it just all came back. And I thought to myself, I would never accept their story, which is like, this is it, you're done. I was like, that's their story. That's not my story. And I didn't know how it would happen or when or why, but I just always held the space for that. So once again, that's about ushering in miracles in our own life. And I know that doctor, gave me the best advice they could. I know they gave me everything they could from the science they had seen and every bit of knowledge they had. But holding that space for miracles to happen in your life, whether it was like my second NDE where I was able to usher in the Christ light and live through that, or whether it was getting my taste and smell back, there's always room for God, your angels, your loved ones to create miracles, or what we call miracles. And they're like, all you had to do was be open to it, right? And we're like, oh, it's a miracle. And they were like, we just needed you to hold the space. So leaving that room for those things to happen in your life is important. And we don't always have to know why or how or who. We just have to know that there's so much more working in our favor than we will ever see with our human eyes or human mind.
So my printer just went off randomly while you were saying that. So I feel like that's my angel's like, yep, listen to her. She knows, like literally I'm in the other room. Like I'm nowhere near my printer and it just started going off. So that's confirmation that you're totally right.
Thank you for that.
So, and also how do you manifest, I guess, miracles like for other people? So let's say, your friend or your brother or somebody that you want to help them. How is it the same idea of leaving space for them or their miracle?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I read for people or do healing work on people, really all I'm doing is holding the space. I'm holding the space for their loved ones to come through and give them a message. I'm holding space for the beautiful healing energy of God, source divine, to come through and work on them. I'm holding the space. So really I'm just kind of a fancy little placeholder is all that I am. I just hold the place, hold the place, hold this space. So in your mind, in your body, in your actions, hold this space in your life and in the space for others' lives for those miracles to happen. Are you guys ready to take a little break? And then we'll come back and talk more about moving from fear to acceptance to love. Perfect. All right. And we can start with questions when we come back, and let's do 10 minutes. Is 10 minutes good? Okay. And then we'll come back. We'll start with questions if you have anything that comes up from everything we already covered, and then we'll move into the next part.
Awesome. So 9:10 we'll be back.
9:10. All right. Thank you.
Great morning.
Good morning. Here, let me pause the recording.
Yeah.
It's usually my go-to. I'm wearing this really silver, I can kind of see.
Oh yeah.
They always have to match. That's the other thing. I'm OCD about that. They have to be the same exact color.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll get to learn more about it then, I guess. Tell me about what that means.
Exactly.
Yours are pretty popsicle nails.
There's the popsicle nails. That's right. Balancing your chakras, sweetheart.
There you go. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you talked about your ladder experience and you felt your spirit being yanked out, that whole thing is fascinating. I don't know exactly how to ask the question, but is that a common, at the point of transition where our spirit is removed and we're observing and we have that chance to make, I realize you can't answer for all experiences, but
right.
That whole thing is so fascinating that, we're spared that, like, you're actually seeing that you're about to, fall and land, all of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy to think about it.
It is.
Do you think that's a common thing among transitions?
I do. And I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of people I've connected with on the other side over readings through the years. A lot of them will say, I wasn't feeling the pain. I wasn't connected at that point of time. The interesting thing is, though, that's a great point, and I want to talk about this a little bit. So in that situation for me, I felt like my soul was yanked out, like if I was on a bungee cord and it like hit and ran, it felt like ripped
Yeah.
out, not in a painful way, but in the momentum of it, right? Where it was like
Right.
so fast. I just literally felt ripped
Right.
out of my body. However, I've had also something called a shared death experience. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with those, but a shared death experience happens when someone in human form who is fine and healthy is sitting with a loved one who is transitioning or dying. Okay. And so that can be anything from maybe they see like a mist, which would be their soul leaving their body, all the way up to we have people who have reported having seen their loved one's life review with them. And then they come back into their body and their loved one has transitioned. And most of the time when people have shared death experiences, what happens is they are left with so much more peace and comfort knowing that their loved one is fine. So I actually had a shared death experience with my second white German Shepherd, Maya. And this happened a few years ago. We were at the point where we had to euthanize her because she had lymphoma. And there was nothing about me trying to be a medium. I was literally in my pajamas, sobbing on the floor, hugging her, crying, like so sad, just so human. Nothing about me like, oh, let me see if I can walk her home. No, you would think as a medium, I would have maybe thought that. No, I was just like too caught up in my own grief and my own process. So as I was on the floor, laying with her, hugging her, crying, the vet administered the anesthesia, or I think that's an overdose of anesthesia is what I think the euthanasia is. And I was hugging her, and all of a sudden my mom, who had transitioned in 2018, I felt this for her. So you know how I said I felt like my soul was yanked out of my body? With Maya, I felt it like her soul disconnected like a feather on the breeze. It was so gentle, so easy. And I felt her disconnect. And then I literally heard my mom say, I have her now. And about 45 seconds after that, the vet said, she's gone. She listened to her heart. And I had already known. And so I had this amazing experience. So a lot of times I don't think our soul leaves our body like feeling yanked out like I did. Although I want to be really clear, I didn't feel traumatized that I was yanked out. It just happened so fast, right? But for Maya, I felt this very gentle, almost like that, the scene in Forrest Gump where there's the feather on the wind.
Yeah.
That was the disconnect of her soul from her body. Very gentle. Very gentle. And I don't know if some of that had to do with, it's interesting because she was actually in the kitchen where I had my head injury when she was euthanized. And I don't know if some of that was because we were able to have the vet come to the house and she was at home and she was peaceful. But I will say a lot of times when I connect, they say, you need to tell my loved one I'm okay. I didn't feel that. Like I had a mom I was reading for, and her son was in a car accident. The car caught on fire and he burned to death in the car. So important for his mom to know that he wasn't connected to the pain of his transition.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I do think that, and we know from people who have a lot of near-death experiences, they talk about, well, I was hovering over my body. I know what you said to me. I saw this person come in. I saw that happen. And they're not talking about the pain of the situation or the physical pain because they're not connected to that. They're truly seeing it from a soul level.
That's amazing.
The trauma kind of puts us out of the feeling of it as a human. I mean, when you come out of it, it's you still have all the physical human things that were thrown, but the trauma of it, it kind of like protects us for a minute, whether it be living or halfway transitioning. I've been in some situations that are very traumatic that I've come upon, and honestly, I've been just taken out and cope. But the whole it's out of body. It's like a hot, cold, boom, done, quick.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Yeah. And then to go back to kind of like that description of playing the video game, right? There is that part of your soul that says, oh, well, we knew this video game was going to end, or we knew this accident was going to happen, but that doesn't mean your soul has to carry the trauma with that. And so this is something that is not on my topic, but I just want to mention this. Like, as a medium, I always see people's soul as whole. I mean, I don't care if you're in a coma. I have a sister with severe cerebral palsy. She can only use her index finger on her left hand. Her soul is whole, you know. I mean, so remembering that part where your soul is really whole and able to process the situation, a lot of times when our body and human mind can't. Because it says it's a game. Yes.
Actually, it's a two-part question. It might be kind of random, but do you ever, you talked about that peace that you felt when you were in your NDE. Do you ever feel like during your normal day-to-day life, oh, can you get back to that place of peace? I mean, if you do, like, how can someone that hasn't had that experience go to that place of peace?
Yeah. So for that, we all have something similar. So I would say the easiest way to do that is go to the moment in your life. And we usually have at least a few where we felt the most complete, the most happy, the most, you know, for some people, like for my son right now, I would say it's on the baseball field, right? When he hit the, you know, the ball and got 3 people and 3 RBIs, you know, right? So you go to that place in your mind and your heart. Maybe for you, that's the beach. Maybe it's like, oh, I remember sitting on the beach wherever this day and the way the sun felt. So going back to that moment where you feel complete and peace, and then just letting that almost grow inside of you and letting it light up each cell in your body and letting it get to the point where it's surrounding you and you're literally sitting in the peace of that moment.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I will tell you, for me, I've had this happen a couple times and it takes me right back there when I'm not even trying to get back to that place of peace, but I will be in a park or outside. And the way that the wind, usually it's like, I want to say the sun's at like a 4 o'clock time in the afternoon angle, not summer, more winter. So it's down a little bit more, right? And that angle, well, I don't know about in Canada, I'm speaking Arizona sun. So, but we get this angle and I feel the breeze and I see the leaves on the tree are moving and the light is dancing on the grass. And this has happened 2 or 3 times. It takes me right back there and I can see it all being alive. So that's where I would say, go to those moments where you feel the most peace, the most completeness, and then grow that. And then ask for help, ask your angels, ask God, ask your life guide, say, hey, I want this feeling to grow inside of me. Can you amplify it? Well, I'll do my part about getting to that moment. And then can you amplify it when I'm there?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, let's start. So let's start with this. So when I talk about my 3 NDEs, right, there was a lot of fear. Not actually, let me be very clear, not in the moment, not when I was having them. It was coming back and it was like, okay, how am I going to incorporate this into my human life? What are people going to think? How am I, you know, she's worried about potty training her kid and I'm talking to dead people. Like, I don't see balance in that, you know, and so feeling very isolated and alone. However, the 3 NDEs literally changed my life. Right? And they brought me to a place that I couldn't have been otherwise. Being afraid of change for me was really choosing suffering over opportunities, right? And I put myself in that place because I would be like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared of what they're going to think. I don't know if I should share this message. Instead of saying, this is an opportunity for me to connect to source, for me to give this person this message, for them to know that their loved ones are around. So really it starts with moving from seeing things as suffering to seeing things as opportunity. So with the fear part, which I just equal fear is suffering, because when we're living in fear, we are suffering. We are, and you know, making ourselves suffer, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So the fear part for me was saying, I didn't ask for this, right? And we all have these situations in our lives. So whether it's a business that's closing down, whether it's whatever happens to you that you didn't choose, you can say, I didn't ask for this. You can say, I'm not feeling ready for this challenge. I was definitely not feeling ready for the challenge of becoming a medium. It was really easy to just be a stay-at-home mom. And then the other thing that we use with fear is we say, the people around me won't understand, right? So we already will go ahead and choose what that person will or will not understand, which is kind of presumptuous of us, that we'll say, oh, they would never accept me if they knew that. Well, maybe that's true, but there have been some people who've accepted me as a medium in ways that was like, wow, like I didn't know how much that person needed to hear that from me that day, or to know that there was that hope or that connection that things will go on. So we have to check ourselves. The fear is mostly living in our mind, right? Even when we watch CNN, so let's do this in the general world today, or Fox, I don't care, whatever you watch, just don't watch the news. That's what I do. But when you watch the news, right? This world looks like a horrible place. There's no doubt, right? It's a horrible place. But then when I turn off the news and I look around, well, none of that's happening in my living room, in my house. The people in my life are okay. So it's not that I'm saying don't acknowledge that it's happening in the world. It is, but the world isn't this fearful, scary place that they make it out to be. So some of this is choosing, and you do get this choice. Do you want to live in a world of fear, or do you want to live in a world of love? Those are your options, and you get to make that choice. Now, that doesn't mean that COVID's not real. That doesn't mean that businesses aren't closing because of it. I'm not negating any of that at all, but I'm also saying, but maybe that guy was struggling in his business and now he's getting unemployment and he's making more money and he has the opportunity to decide what he wants to do with his rest of his life. So there's this other level where you can see it for more than it is. The other part about fear, or the suffering part, is all people want to feel these four things. They want to feel successful in whatever it is they're doing. They want to feel comfortable. So that's huge. They want to feel right, right? Everybody knows the people that need to feel right. We all want to feel right. It's just our human nature. And we want to feel loved in this place and in this space and time. So successful, comfortable, right, and loved. Well, when we're being asked to move out of our comfort zone, we don't feel successful because we haven't accomplished it yet, right? It's not comfortable. Nobody likes to move out of their comfort zone. However, that is where the most growth happens for us on a human level and a soul level. We want to feel right. We don't know if we're right yet. So that's the other part. That's the part that leads into the fear. Am I right? I don't know if I'm right. Is this the right choice? I can't tell you how many people call me, should I do A or B? You know, or they set up readings and we're like, well, let's go through A or B, because we want to feel right. And we want to feel loved for who we are, whatever that looks like. So while that's amazing and something that we know at the end of our choice, it's not something we know at the beginning of our choice. And that's where fear can stop us in our tracks, because we're afraid of what if this and that, and it's not comfortable and they might not love me anymore. So we're moving from that. So that's the suffering. So I just want you to be aware of that when you're moving into new decisions, new opportunities, okay? Acceptance, for me, the fear was absolutely all of those. I didn't know if I would be a successful medium. I absolutely was not comfortable stepping into this new territory. My mom was convinced that if there was light, there's darkness. If there's good, there's bad. You know, how did I know what I was tapping into? I wanted to be right. I wanted to make the right choice for me, for my friends, for my family, for my kids. And I wanted the people that I love to still love me. I lost friends from making this choice because it didn't go hand in hand with their strict religious beliefs, and they had a hard time. And so that was kind of painful, right? So there's a lot of fear, and these things are real because we are wired to want to survive. And we know that growing over time, humans survive in a pack, right? That's even why we tell our kids, like, don't go by yourself walking down the street at night. But if you go with 3 other friends, it's okay. There's that natural survival instinct, right? And we start training them from the time that they're little. But there's suffering in that. There is suffering in that because it's coming to choose to live in this world from a place of fear. So the acceptance part is going to be starting to see the opportunities in your life, right? So there was an opportunity for me here to go find a new tribe, to have a new network of people, to support myself with a system of people and a network of people who were okay with what I did, right? And this is going to be giving yourself permission. Here's the opportunity, giving yourself permission to outgrow people, places, and situations. There's a huge opportunity in that. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about with that, when you're surrounding yourself with your support system of people, is also to go within, because you truly have the answers inside of you, right? So I could have looked around and I could have found 10 people who would say, no, no, don't be a medium. This is never going to work. This is bad. This is evil. No, no, no. I also could have found 10 people who said, oh my God, you've got this. Do it. Don't stop now, right? And totally cheered me on, because we live in this world where we've actually learned really well how to find the people who will support the answer we want to hear. Even if that's on Google, right? You can find the answer you want on Google, depending on which way you want to see it, right? We've trained ourselves like, okay, and my kids know that. If my kids want to do something and they know I'm more likely to say yes than dad, they're going to ask me, not him, because it's already ingrained in us to seek the answer that we want to find, not maybe the answer that's the right answer for us. So that's when it stops and you say, okay, before I Google it, before I find 10 people to tell me what I want to hear, I actually need to stop and use this opportunity to go inside and see, what does my soul say, and see what feels right for me. And so I would really tell you, for the biggest decisions in your life, starting small to big, but all of them, you need to go inside. It's not time to go talk to your 10 best friends. It's not time to ask these people in your life. It's time for you to connect to your soul and to source and say, what is the right answer for me? And what I've found in my life is some of the biggest decisions I've had to make, I truly haven't asked anyone for advice, because I knew it was between me and God. And becoming a medium is one of those decisions where there wasn't this part of me that started to take a poll about who said I should, who said I shouldn't. It was just where I said, God, is this really what you want me to do? And the answer was clearly yes, Michelle. And as a matter of fact, you agreed to it in your third near-death experience. So I was like, well, oh crap, I guess I'm going to have to do that now. I mean, that's the energy. So do that as an opportunity, is always check in with yourself. And so people like to use lots of different tools. Some people use tarot cards, some people use pendulums, some people use automatic writing. If you use a tool, that's awesome, but check in with yourself first and use that tool as backup, because I want you to learn to connect with your own soul, with your own source, with your own information, and then back it up with what you're going to find. Because the answer is always within you. Absolutely. Okay. And then speaking of that, as you're moving through this process of acceptance and opportunities, because we've now moved out of fear and we're moving into acceptance and opportunities. As you're moving through this process, I want you to get to the place where you just say, I know that I know what I know. Period. Like, you can tell me that is gray and I see yellow. You can tell me whatever it is, but I know that I know what I know. And this is right for me. And then part of that is actually being able to look around this world and see that there's not actually one truth. There are billions, about 7.5 billions of universal truths walking around on this planet, right? Everyone has their own truth. And so that's not a personal attack if their truth isn't your truth and your truth isn't theirs. It's just simply their truth and what their soul has come to see and learn and grow in. I will tell you, it was not until my third near-death experience that I was able to actually look at people and say, I wonder what they're trying to learn on a soul level. Because up until that point, I kept saying, like, why does my sister keep dating these crappy men? There's the same guy, different body. Like, why, right? Looking at the human part of her. And after that, when I was able to come back and not judge it and literally just say, I wonder what her soul's trying to learn here, and do it from a place of curiosity and love, instead of needing to figure out what's wrong. So also going back to how earlier I said, I never see anyone's soul as broken. It's always whole. I don't see broken people either. And I know that's kind of a crazy thing to say, but I don't. I see souls expressing themselves differently, but I don't look around and see broken people. Now, I do know I see things that I think are horrible and ugly that happen in this world. There's no doubt about that. But I can't actually say I see broken people. I don't. I see souls having different experiences and different expressions on this planet at this time. Okay, so one of the ways that you get to the point where you just know that you know, there's a few different tools that I find for that. So meditation is a good tool. I want to be really clear. I think meditation looks different for everyone. For some people, that's running. For some people, that's sitting quietly. For some people, that's a hot shower. For some people, that's driving their car. For some people, it's gardening. So it doesn't matter to me what your form of meditation is. It's just when you get to the point that your mind can be quiet and you can hear spirit, right? So how many people are like, a lot of people say like, oh, I don't know what to do, but if I sleep on it, I'll get the answer. Yeah, because you're quieting your mind and you're letting spirit connect with you. So whatever that meditation looks like for you is an amazing tool. Journaling is a good tool. The tool that I think though with journaling is not writing down everything necessarily that you're thinking in your head, but more of saying, okay, spirit, what do I need to know about this situation? Or really a clear list, pros, cons, whatever that is. Prayer works. Prayer works. A lot of people use prayer, like please asking for help, asking for guidance. And a lot of times I will do that with my angels. And this is kind of funny. I don't really talk about this a lot, but a lot of times my angels talk to me in emojis. So like I'll ask them a question, I'll get like 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down, happy face, frowny face, broken heart, whatever it is. You know, you're like, really? Your angels are? Yes, because I get it. And we all understand. That's the beauty of emojis, right? They just have to drop one picture into my head and I'm like, oh, got it, on whatever this subject, question, answer is. So that's an amazing way to communicate with your angels. Just be like, send me the emoji. Like, what do I need to know? And then you'll see what happens, right? Because they work visually for all of us. And all of us can imagine right now when I say, imagine the smiling face emoji. You can see it in your head. When I say, see the emoji that has a crooked face with tears because it's laughing so hard, you can see that one, right? The thumbs up, you can see the thumbs down. So your third eye is already open to some extent. So being open to just saying, okay, show me what I need to know. And it's quick and it's easy. So I want to say the universe will meet you where you are. So I have friends that like to do these water ceremonies where they take hours to days to bless the water. And he has like this copper triangle and crystals and the fans blowing. And he's got like this whole setup. And I'm like, that is amazing. This is how I bless my water. I look at it, I speak to it, I say, peace, love, and clarity. And it's blessed. So that's how the universe meets me where I am. I don't have 3 hours to bless my water, right? So being really open to how the universe is going to talk to you and how you want it. And they want to talk to you and work with you. So what works for you? Right? I mean, emojis are the quickest, easiest thing I can think of right now. And a lot of times, now spirit also will speak to me and say other things. But when I'm in a quick moment, I'll just say, or if somebody says, should I take this job or that job? I see like smiley face for this one, not a good one on that, or whatever this is. So be open to how spirit will communicate with you. The other thing I want to say is with the acceptance and the opportunities, you have to believe in yourself to adapt, period. Whether it's your mind, your body, or your spirit, because our spirits will continue to evolve and grow long after we have left this body behind. That never stops. And our mind, well, hopefully for most people in an ideal situation, is adapting and growing too, right? We always know those people that were like, oh, that's not looking good, but the possibility and the ability to do it are there. And with our body. So even for me, right? The doctors had said, you're never going to smell again. You're never going to, do this or that. And this is done. I didn't have to know how, but I knew my body could find a way with the right help or the right person, I didn't know, but I held the space knowing that my body could adapt. So here's the other thing too. this is a very hot topic in our culture right now, vaccine or no vaccine, right? I actually had Spirit tell me the other day that COVID is the new civil war, because it is literally pulling families apart. And we experience that. I've seen it in different ways. We're the only, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not vaccinated. My kids aren't vaccinated. My husband's not vaccinated. Simply because it doesn't feel right for me. I'm fine if you want to go get vaccinated. I just don't think everyone needs to get vaccinated, right? But I honor people where they are. But because of that, there is this separation. So we were on Mother's Day at my in-laws' house, and my son, who's not vaccinated, got on this huge pool raft with his cousin who is vaccinated. And my mother-in-law said, he shouldn't be next to him, he's not vaccinated. And I thought, oh, I didn't say anything, but that told me where she is. She's coming from that place of fear. She's coming from that place of, even though the other cousin is vaccinated, he should be okay. You know what I mean? It was just interesting to me. And then I talked to a friend after that who is vaccinated, who spent Mother's Day with his ex-wife and their 2 adult daughters, and they were mad at him for getting vaccinated. So that was when I just saw, you know, there's not a right and wrong, but it is in a way a new civil war, pulling families apart, you're either with us or you're against us, right? And so just know that your body will adapt. And this is what I feel like, our bodies are smart enough to adapt. So if you got the vaccine and if you felt like that was the right move for you, your body's going to come in alignment and agreement with that, and that's going to be okay. I don't feel like you need to worry about having some whatever we're talking about. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's okay. So do what's right for you, but believe in your body, mind, and spirit to adapt to this situation. And if for some reason you forget that you're able to do that, think of everything you've overcome in your life. Look at your 100% survival rate. Look at your ability to change and grow through every challenge you have been given. You clearly can adapt, right? Any questions? Okay. We are moving right along. So the biggest thing too, and I think this is a Joan of Arc quote, but I love it. And it says something about the biggest battles are won and lost in your mind. Okay. That is really true, because it just has to do with how you're going to approach the situation, right? Because I do believe if I had bought into what the doctor said and said, I will never get better, period. This is it. I'm never going to smell again. I'm never going to taste again. I'm going to have this phantom taste and smell forever. I do believe I would have allowed myself to step into that for the rest of my life. So that mind, thinking about what you're thinking about, right? That's huge. And what I personally call those are conscious conversion points. So this is when we're moving throughout the day and we stop, and it could be about a little thing or a big thing. I'm trying to think. So let's just use like, I'm trying to think of a good belief, whatever, something you believe in, right? I want you to just decide, okay, do I believe in God, source, the above, because I've been told to believe that? Or do I believe in that because of my own personal knowing and my own connection to source, right? So this is a conscious conversion point. Then let's think about that. What do you believe to be true or not true, and why? So that's a big thing. So you can do it on really big things or smaller things. But I will tell you, it took a long time, because I was raised Catholic and went to Sunday school every week and all of that. It took a long time for me to get to the point where I like, no, I absolutely know there's a God, an army of angels, saints, and a whole spirit team around me helping me move forward. But this, and this don't feel right to me. Right? So whatever that is, these are conscious conversion points. So here's the opportunity in this. You're going to ask, who taught me this and what does it mean? Right? So if I said, think of a color that makes you happy, just think about what color comes to mind. Does that color really make you happy, or is that the color someone told you is the color of happiness? So for me, it's yellow, and I don't know why, but my mom was always like, oh, yellow, it's good. It's a happy color. So I have to tell you, I honestly don't know if I even think that for myself, or if I think that because my mom just trained me to think that, right? little things to big things. But the more we have these conscious conversion points, the bigger it is on knowing yourself and your ability to move forward through all of these opportunities. So the question is really, what is this and what does it mean to me? Not what the kid in 3rd grade said about it, not what, my brother taught me, not any of these things, but what is this and what does it mean to me? You also have to give yourself permission to know that your definitions about these things can and will change, right? Because this is called evolution of the soul. So the same things that I saw when I was 20 do not look the same when I'm 40, and they won't look the same when I'm 60. And that's perfect. It means I'm on track. I'm evolving, right? When we come to the point where we're looking for opportunities and we don't know what is the right decision to make, know this: the universe, God, source, the divine, never stays quiet for long. So if you don't know the right answer today, give yourself a day, give yourself 2 days, give yourself a week, and the answer will be made clear to you. And it might be made clear through little signs. It might be just this knowing. My dad swears when he was in a pool one time, God told him he would marry my mom. Well, that's pretty clear. I mean, he wasn't saying like, yeah, so it's just kind of like when you get to these points in time, don't pressure yourself. Most of the stuff that we do is not brain surgery. So we don't have to get it right now, this moment, period, right? We have the ability to think about it. We have the ability to play with it. And if we don't have the right answer, we have the ability or the space to let God, the universe, the divine, show us that right answer. There's this other thing I want to bring up real quick too, which is sometimes we get in these human patterns. So you might have heard the saying, a lump in your oatmeal, a lump in your throat, a lump in your breast, right? Okay, if it's a lump in your oatmeal, you're gonna chop it up with your spoon and keep going, no big deal. If it's a lump in your throat, it gets your attention and you go, that kind of hurt. What am I thinking about, right? Lump in your throat, lump in your breast. Okay, we need to take a different level of care and pay attention to this and see where we need to go. As humans, very often, and I see this a lot, we get in the pattern of teaching or thinking that everything is a lump in the breast type scenario, right? Where we want to read, oh my God, the lady at Starbucks messed up my coffee and this and that, and I'm running late or whatever. And we're like, okay, that's like a lump in the oatmeal. You just get back in line and get a new coffee. It's not that big of a reaction point. So catching ourselves in these conscious conversion points of knowing, okay, am I reacting to lump in the oatmeal, lump in the throat, lump in the breast? 3 totally different reactions, but what is the right really response for this? And especially we live in a society where everybody, I feel like, overreacts a lot in a lot of ways right now. I mean, the news does it, no matter what, Democrat and Republican, it doesn't matter. We're being fed overreactions on situations like that. So just being aware. What? Jamie, I see you. I can't hear you though.
Because that's what sells.
Yeah.
The overreaction is what sells.
Yeah. Because living in a world of fear is much more dramatic and controlling of people than we're living in a world of love. Right? And so then we're hooked onto CNN, right? Oh my God, or Fox News or wherever. Where are they saying? What are they saying? What's happening now? And I do feel that way. Like, so when my mother-in-law freaked out because my son was on the raft next to the other cousin who was vaccinated, that was a little bit of like, oh, she does sit home and watch a lot of TV. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like I really tried to not take that personal. It felt a little personal, but I really tried not to, because it wasn't that. It was a reaction of who she is and her reality and her truth right now at that moment. So I honored that, it is okay. Here's another thing that I want to mention about opportunities. When we're in circumstances in life that are challenging, I want you to say to yourself, what does this person or circumstance represent to me? So there's this part where we're looking around us and people mirror us to our soul. So when we say, oh my gosh, I don't like that person, they're so bossy, okay, well, maybe we need to do a little check on ourselves. Is that me? Am I the one who's really bossy? That person is so, they just live in fear about everything. Okay, but what are you fearful about? So not seeing it as good or bad, but almost seeing it as a mere reflection of some part of yourself that you just need to look into. Now, I also don't think we need to spend 10 years on psychotherapy and working through the process. I don't, but I think just acknowledging it, oh, I know why I don't like that. That bugs me because it makes me think of this, or it brings this up in me. That's all I want you to do, is just be aware about it and where you're going. Okay, let's see here. So part of the acceptance or the opportunities is being at peace with where you are. So it's like this. We're all going to Disneyland. Get in the car. We're driving to Disneyland. It's there. My kids are in the back seat. They're fighting. They're screaming. I'm like, oh God, no, I just want to get to the car to Disneyland so we can all get out of the car, right? But there's a part where being at peace, that doesn't sound like a peaceful moment, but there's this part where I have to say, this isn't going to last forever. And this might be one of our greatest memories. Who knows what someone's going to say next? And in the next 10 years, we might laugh about this forever. So finding peace in the moment. The other thing is, for most of us, even if this is on our own individual journey, not the drive to Disneyland, most of us are okay in the moment. There is peace here. Most of us have enough food. Most of us are in some type of shelter with air conditioning or heat, whatever we need. There's usually peace in the moment. So instead of running away with everything that's coming up, finding that peace in the moment is going to be really big. Living intentionally is huge. Living intentionally is a tool that most people forget, right? Most of us live reactive to life, not proactive to life. So starting your day with an intention is very simple. Like, even if it's like, I am here today, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be present in this moment, I'm going to show up to lunch, and I'm literally going to sit there with my friend and listen to what they have to say instead of thinking about what I have to say or the 10 things I need to get done after lunch. So living intentionally is huge. And there's a lot of peace in that when you're living intentionally instead of reacting to life. Another tool for that is to say, what does my heart say? So putting your hands on your heart when you're in situations where you don't know the right answer, putting your hands on your heart and asking yourself 2-3 times, what does my heart say? And then just literally quieting your mind and giving your heart the opportunity to speak. What does my heart say? It says, this is a good decision. Today, we don't need to do much. Today's the day to rest. Whatever this is, being open to what your heart is going to say to you, because it's very much connected with your soul. Your heart and soul are very connected. And so you've got to know that that is somewhat of a higher spiritual source guiding you when you're asking your heart what it says. The intelligence in your heart and my mind and your gut matches your brain intelligence. It just presents differently, right? So you all know what it's like when you have that gut intuition, like, oh, this is not going to go well, or I shouldn't do that. That's every bit as much intelligence as your brain. It just comes out in a different way. Same with your heart. As you're doing that, as you're asking yourself, what does my heart say? It gives you the ability to step into your truth, your own personal truth. What is right for you? What is right for you? You don't have to have the answer to that, but as you're listening to your heart and you're living intentionally, it automatically plays out because you're giving it the right steps. And the other thing I want to talk about with being at peace and finding your peace through acceptance is allowing yourself to embrace your feelings. So I want you to embrace them as they're happening, right? The more that we know what we don't want, the more clear we are on what we do want, right? The more we know what scares us, the more we know what thrills us. It's this combination. So being able to sit with the emotion that you're having and not labeling it as bad or good, just see it as this emotional compass. Like, oh, if I'm feeling really bad about this, it's my soul telling me this isn't a good experience. This isn't what you need. Go the opposite direction. So pay attention to your feelings because they are this compass from your soul helping you navigate. And knowing that you don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. Yeah, that's good because now you have a clarity on what you do want. So seeing it in in those ways are really important. Going inside. Okay, so going inside, tuning in, knowing that you know. This is going to be going inside to understand your next action or your highest path. So these are my tips for that, because once you can do that, once you can go inside to understand your next action and your highest path, you can live life from a place of love, right? You can choose to live in the world of love, not the world of fear. You can choose to make decisions for your highest good. So step number one, taking in a deep breath and remembering that your power is in this present moment. It's not in the worry about the future. It's not in the heartache of the past. Truly take a deep breath in. Sometimes I'll take 2 or 3, and just know your power is in this present moment. This is where, I'm not saying don't plan for your future, but I'm telling you your power is here. So even in the planning for your future, it's happening in this moment, right? So in this present moment, we have the place or the space that you can cultivate and plan what you want, and that you can take a deep breath and you can say, okay, but right now I'm sitting in my house, I have air conditioning, I have a bottle of water, I'm having lunch in a few minutes, whatever this looks like, everything is okay in the present moment, right? Even if somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, okay, and this, I'm just going to use my mom as an example. She died of breast cancer. Even the moment when they gave her the diagnosis, she was actually okay in that moment. She was the healthiest she was going to be in the process. She was in an air-conditioned environment. She was safe. There was no one with a gun to her head, all of those things. It's really hard to tap into something like that when you're getting that news, right? And I'll be honest, we weren't able to. But in the present moment, there's usually some safety and some peace, if that's what you're worrying about, right? Okay. And then also paying attention to the signs that God or the universe will send you, because those are going to be things that you will see, hear, feel, or just know. And whether this is in business or relationships, right? Next time you want to go on a date with a guy, ask the angels to send you the emoji thumb up or thumb down. See what happens. You're like, oh, maybe I don't need to waste my time on that, right? I mean, so in little things in life, in little decisions and big, and I would say, start practicing with like that, because that's fun and you can all do it. But even if it's like you go to Starbucks and you're like, should I have the decaf or the caffeinated? Okay, let's see what the angels say. Oh, caffeinated today. It's going to be that kind of a day. Got it. You know, so start playing with it on the little things. But then when you get to the bigger decisions in life, you're going to be able to trust that. Should I take this new job? Should I, go on that date? Should I do this? Should I do that? What do the angels say? Always, always, always. What do the angels say? What do my loved ones? What does my spirit team say? The other thing I want to tell you about that is, as you're living your life on your highest path for your highest good, that question is, what life do I want to create? What do I want to create for myself? So living intentionally. And when you pick this topic of what life do I want to create for myself, you need to hold so true to it and vibrate and resonate with it so strongly that any other opportunity that might come your way is going to be like bounces off the wall if it doesn't line up with what you want. And that's how you'll know that it's true. Because if this is something where you're like, well, I really want that, but then you're self-sabotaging and you're like, oh, but I'll do that instead, or I'll do that instead, or you're like changing up the plan, you know that that really might not have been for your highest good because you couldn't resonate with it on a level to maintain the course. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing I want to say, this is the last thing on this, is that one thing I always do in my life, and I encourage people to do it all the time too, when you're having these amazing moments, whatever, it's peace, it's silence, it's thrilling, whatever your moment is, I always use the mantra, this or better. So I'm telling the universe clearly, and I don't do it obviously in my worst moments. I mean, you could, but I wait till it's the highlight of my day and I say, okay, universe, this or better, this or better. This cup of coffee or better, this moment of silence, this exciting news or better. That's the energy that I want you to start facing life with, because I want you to get excited about it. And I want you to choose to live life from a place of love, not fear. And the biggest way to do that is to be aware of the stories we're telling ourselves, the stories we're letting into our reality. There's a lot of stories out there. You can pick and choose them. What do you want to let in? And but when I say that, I want to be clear. Like, I do believe the doctor who told me, oh, you're not going to smell anymore and all of that. I think he was giving me the best knowledge he had. So I'm not holding that against him, but that was his story. That wasn't mine. So being able to really separate that out is huge. All right. You guys have some questions?
That's huge, being able to separate it and kind of compartmentalize that kind of thing in order to be able to accept people for who they are and where they are. So huge.
It is so huge. Listen, and I'm giving it to you guys the easy way. I had to go through 3 NDEs to get to that point. But just being able to see people for who they are, where they are, and it's okay. It's not actually a personal attack on me either way. It's just who they are. Yeah.
I have a question. You really answered this already, but I have a hard time staying present, especially in, at work when I'm focused on, work and, how do I have a hard time getting back to present. Do you have any tips on doing that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, number one is your breath. You could also do something, because earlier I was talking about how when I lost my sense of smell, like even the smell of the garbage makes you be in the present moment, because you're like, that stinks now. You could have a bottle of perfume, an oil, or something where you smell it. It literally brings you right here into the moment, right? Tapping. So if people have heard of EFT, you have to pay attention. You know what? Pat your head, rub your tummy, all that stuff. You have to be in the present moment. Breath work. There's a million ways to do it, but it has to be something that makes you concentrate on this moment right now. So usually breath work is something that will really help with that. Taking in 3 deep breaths. Okay, being right here, right now. And that mantra, right here, right now, or be here now, telling yourself that is very helpful. So, and it's also really hard, right, as humans to do a 180, to go from one extreme to the other. So for you, those are things that you practice when you're like having your cup of coffee in the morning or whatever this is. You're like, okay, you smell it, you sip it, you feel the heat coming off of it, you feel that there's nothing going on around you, it's quiet in the house right now, whatever. Being present in the moment, starting with the little steps, because our brains have neural pathways, and then we understand like, oh, okay, we can get there faster. So it's like meditation for people who meditated and whatever that looks like. In the beginning, it's pretty hard for them, a lot of people, but then after they've done it for a year, they can get there easily. So it's training our minds.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, what do you say we take another 10-minute break? And then we will come back. And if you guys have any questions that pop up, write them down, and we'll do questions when we start the next part. Thank you.
Let's, 10 after.
Okay.
That's our
Okay.
time. Okay. How are we always the first ones back?
Because we're into it.
I'm so into it. My dog's outside sunbathing, so it's like, I'm just gonna leave the door open and let him enjoy himself.
That sounds lovely.
Oh, here he is. He heard me
Like
talking
flannel,
about it.
because it's so cold in my house.
Oh, take some of our heat, please. Oh, my dog heard me. Okay, he's back on his spot in the couch, ready to listen. He's been with me all through these seminars. I think he really is getting something out of them.
My cat wants to be right with me too.
So cute.
For sure.
Oh, Milo.
If I feel the same about the vaccine.
I didn't, I really didn't want to do it, but for my clinical placements, since I'm around young children and I'm going to be in like a nursing facility, like they basically were like, well, you can't, we won't accept you for your internship if you don't. And I'm like, oh, that's 3 years of grad school down. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. But I honestly and also my family is very scared about it. So I'm trying to respect them. But I was like, no matter what I do, whether I get it or don't get it, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to be fine no matter what. If this makes people more comfortable and lets me get through my internships and makes me be able to get through school, like I'm just not going to worry about it. Because
Yeah.
kind of like Michelle was saying, there's no right or wrong decision. It's just a decision, and you just have to think positive no matter what happens. So that's because I was really scared at first, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, whatever, it's gonna be fine. No matter what happens, it's all fine.
As my girlfriend goes, I don't resonate with COVID. I'm not gonna get it.
Well, that's kind of, and I haven't gotten
vibrate
it
the same
this whole year. Yeah, I haven't gotten it, and I told my mom, I'm like, I'm healthy and fine, and so I said, vaccine or no vaccine, I don't resonate with being sick or having anything bad happen to me. So it doesn't really matter if I have it or not because I'm fine. Plus, do you know how many energy drinks I've drank in my life? And like, God knows what was in that. So, that's how I look at it.
So fun.
It is so fun. Are you all familiar with muscle testing? This is totally something different.
Is it? I don't know if it's what I think it is, but
Okay, so chiropractors use it. People use it in different ways. So you can do it different ways. Like you hold something, I'll hold the water and I'll just say, is this water good for my body? And then I feel like, does my body push me back? Do I feel down? Some people do it like they put their arm out. Some people will do it where they use their finger and they say like, is this good for me? And if it goes through, that's a no. Yeah. So, I mean, I've asked myself etherically, like, is the vaccine good for me? And the answer is no, but that's for right now. So I'm also open that like in 6 months, my body might be like, yes, now's the time to get it. So it's just kind of, but people do that with foods that they eat, with all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? And so the muscle testing is a really good way to tap into your subconscious mind and let you know what else is happening. The key is you can't overthink it or think too much about it. You just have to ask and then go and see what the answer is.
And that's kind of what I did. I was like, okay, well, this is what they told me and I'm just going to go with it. And I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to worry about it. It's just, I'm going to get it and it's fine.
Right. Exactly.
And I didn't even think about it. I'm like, I'm not going to worry if it's good, bad, something's going to happen, not happen. I'm just, it's like, I'm fine no matter what.
Right.
That's how I went into it.
Exactly. I did tell my husband that COVID's not in my pre-life planning, so I'm not getting it. So we'll see.
I wouldn't get it. And that's the thing. I didn't even get it for me. I got it for the protection of whoever else. I'm not worried about me getting it or me getting sick or because that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
what I told myself.
Right. Well, no, and there's truth in that because here's the thing: every single cell in your body is eavesdropping on what you say and what you think. Did you ever think about that? Like literally every single cell is like, oh, we're getting sick. Oh, we're doing this. We're doing that. It's true. Our body is constantly listening to us, whether it's our thoughts or our words or whatever this is. So being able to say, I got the vaccine and I'm going to be fine is a very powerful statement. Because your body says, oh, we got the vaccine and we're going to be fine. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. And, I saw my naturopath. I got a bunch of IVs after a lot of, and she's like, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Like, there's no use stressing in anything. I said, yeah, like you said, just positive thoughts. And
yeah. Yeah, because that's really about, and I don't know if you guys talked about this yesterday, but about your vibration level. Did you guys get into that yesterday at all? I mean, so let's talk about that a little bit. That's really about, so this is where our emotional compass can really guide us. So, when you're in that spot where you're like, oh, this feels horrible. This is a bad feeling. I'm feeling anxious or whatever, right? When you're doing that, we literally know like the energy, your body, mind, and spirit, not your spirit. Your spirit always vibrates at a high solid level. So the rest of you, your body and mind, that's almost like a detachment from your spirit because your spirit doesn't feel anxiety. It doesn't feel mad. It doesn't, all of that stuff. That's not your soul or who you are. So when we're feeling really happy and joyful, we're really resonating closely with our soul and vibrating higher. And when we're having like a hard time for whatever reason, anxiety, depression, whatever, that's really our soul saying, it's because you've stepped away from me. You're not as close as we should be. When you come back in, you're going to feel that things are right. So vibrational frequencies are real. We see this in like the person who wakes up late for work and then has a fender bender and then runs into every mad person all day. right? And then you have another person who wakes up late for work, but they're like, oh, well, I'll get there when I get there. And they get there and then everyone's fine. And they're like, oh, it's okay that you were late today. It's not a problem, right? So there's a vibrational, energetic frequency that we're putting out depending on where our mind and our mood is. So really, it's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. What is your emotional compass telling you? Where are you vibrating? When I am connecting with spirit, I have to go to the highest level of vibration I can, and they lower their vibration, and we try to meet in the middle. And that's how it works. Because if I'm in a really depressed, so I'll be honest with you, like last year, I'm such a mom. I still am totally just like a stay-at-home mom in my mind. I will never be anything else. But because of that, when my kids go to school, I am the mom that like cries the first day of school. When my kids outgrew their preemie clothes, I cried. And my husband's like, why are you crying? They fit in newborn now. I'm like, no, it's just the way that I am with my kids, right? So I was kind of dumb enough, not thinking ahead last year, that I scheduled this day after, so the second day of school, readings. But I was an emotional wreck because I was so sad that my kids went back to school. I don't live in that place for long, but I know now I have to give myself this like 24, 48-hour period to be like, okay, summer was really fun and now they're back in school and I'm home, but they're okay, and like talk myself through that. So I actually had to cancel the readings and reschedule them because I was literally in a place, I logged on with someone and I was trying to get there, but my emotions were so wacky that it was like, I was like, hello, spirit, are you there? Like, what happened? I just hit the wall. There's nothing. So our emotions really guide us. So this year, I'm taking off a couple of days around school, but I rescheduled and it was fine. And 3 days later, when we rescheduled, we had a great reading, but it's really about where our mental vibration is, our emotional compass, all of that. It works together as one. So paying attention to that is so huge. Okay. Any questions about everything we went over last hour? No? Okay, awesome. Was it too much? No? Okay. Was it boring? You can tell me that. Okay. You guys are like, we don't know. We slept through the last hour, Michelle. I think it was fine. All right.
It was amazing.
Oh, thank you. All right. So now we're going to talk about moving into when you're in that place of love, right? When you're in this place of love, which is where I want you to choose to live life from. Because there is a choice. We can choose to be fearful. We can choose to be angry. We can choose to be happy. We can choose. That's the beautiful gift of this, is you get to choose how you want to respond and what emotion you want to use to move forward. So in saying that, we're moving into this part where I literally want you to think about this every day this week when you wake up, okay? I am the creator of my reality, period. Write that down. I am the creator of my reality. And then you can ask yourself, what emotion am I currently vibrating at? Right? You can ask yourself that throughout the day, because that will be your compass to guide you. Like, ooh, I'm kind of feeling a little crabby and a little anxious and a little this. Okay, I need to take a few deep breaths in. I need to remember that I'm in a safe place, that my bills are paid for, whatever. Start bringing that stuff in, okay? Then as you're saying, I am the creator of my reality, the next thing I want you to think about is telling yourself that I choose to grow and evolve through my life. So when we hear that, it doesn't really matter what happens that day, because we're already choosing to grow and evolve through that. Now, here's the crazy thing. Life will force you to grow and evolve through your life. So you can do it the hard way or you can do it the easy way. Yeah. You can get into the flow and say, okay, what do I need to learn here? How am I going to do this? What opportunities are being presented to me? Or you can go kicking and screaming down the flow of life. So there are two ways to do this. Either way, we're all going to grow and evolve, but it's nice to be able to say, I'm choosing to grow and evolve through life, not I'm going kicking and screaming and being drugged by the horse or whatever this looks like, right? Okay. And then the biggest thing this week is using your emotional compass. It's huge. Every time that little thing goes off, ding, happy, ding, not happy, anxious, depressed, scared, fearful, loved, whatever this is, pay attention to it because it's literally telling you you're in alignment with your soul, source, God, your angels, your loved ones, or it's telling you you're not in alignment. And if it doesn't feel good, what do you need to shed, push aside, step away from to get back into alignment? Does anyone here listen to Esther Hicks or Abraham Hicks? Yeah. So this is about vibrational match, right? So what does she say? Getting into your vortex. This is what we're talking about. When you're in alignment, you're in alignment and in this vortex with your soul and source and all of that power of the universe. And that's when things just fall into place. The other thing is I want to tell you that it's okay to not know today what tomorrow looks like. It's okay to say, I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know about that job opportunity, but I'm going to know soon. So we don't have to know in the next 5 minutes, but we can know. Okay. The other thing, since you are the creator of your reality this week, the next thing I would ask you to say is, I choose to play in the magic of life. That's big, right? Because a lot of times we sit on the sideline and watch the magic of life pass us by. Or we'd rather sit there and judge someone who's playing in the magic of life than go experience it for ourselves. So with that, your power of intention is one of the strongest things you have. So from my understanding with spirit and the other side, the number one strongest force in the universe, without a doubt, is love. Love heals, love changed lives, love, 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 the number one strongest force. The second, from what I understand, is your power of intention. So how are you going to show up? So if you show up as the creator of your reality, who is ready to play in the magic of life, and that is your intention, and you're doing it from a place of love, the whole universe comes behind you to help you on that journey. So when you choose to play in the magic of life, that's waking up in the morning and saying, I choose to live in a universe of love, not fear, right? I choose to appreciate. So like the other day when I was out to lunch with my friend, the one that had the baby, and we were talking about how are you going to raise him so he's not like, oh, watch out, be careful, right? This little sparrow came and sat on our table and I was feeding it bread out of my hand. He would just come up. That was so magical, right? I was like, just this little sparrow. That was me choosing to play in the magic of life that moment and have that energy exchange with this beautiful little soul. And all it was bread. I was just sharing my bread, right? But those are the moments where I'm like, okay, other people were shooing the birds way, you know what I mean? And there's don't feed the bird sign. And, you know, I try to be a rule follower, but sometimes I just can't. So anyway, choosing to play in the magic of life, right? And with that, you're going to be focusing on introducing smaller positive habits into your life, right? So it's really hard for humans, unless we have something traumatic happen, it's really hard for us to go do 180s, like I said earlier, unless there's something extremely traumatic, near-death experience or trauma in the family, something like that, right? Job loss, something that's like unexpected and traumatic. So the way that we do that is we start by focusing on introducing new, smaller habits. So whatever that is, if that's giving yourself 5 minutes in the morning to actually wake up, lay in bed, not grab your cell phone and check emails, Facebook, Instagram, and all of that, but just give yourself 5 minutes to wake up and say like, good morning, God. Good morning. Good morning, angels. Good morning, loved ones. Thank you for surrounding me today. I know you're going to be with me on this journey. And I look forward to playing in the magic of life with you today. That will be huge for you in changing things like that. So the beginning of your week, this week, every day, your first thought, I'm the creator of my reality. And then you think about how you want that to play out. Then I want you to choose to play in the magic of life. And you do that with your intention. The other thing that I want to bring up for you this next week is I want you to say to yourself, this is the other one, 3 things this week. It is my intention to live my life with purpose. Right? So we're no longer reacting to life, we're creating life. And when you tell yourself, it is my intention to live my life with purpose, there's 3 things I want you to remind yourself under that. I'm sorry, I don't have these notes to you guys. I'll get them to Jamie and she'll get them to you, okay? But there are 3 things with that. You need to remember that your potential to succeed is truly infinite, right? The human construct, the human mind says I have options A and B. The universe, spirit, they say you have options A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through Z, right? So when we forget and think we only have 2 options, the universe kind of laughs because it knows we have many, many options, and it has a million ways of making things happen that you and I can't even imagine at this moment. So I want to also invite you to spend this week daydreaming and focusing your thoughts on what you desire. So that's when you're in that emotional place where you're feeling good. It's a good time to think about, what do I want for my future? What do I want to see happen next week? Oh, how's my vacation going to go this summer? Whatever that is, bringing that daydream in, because that helps raise your vibration, which helps you be in alignment with your soul. So you don't want to do that when you're in a place of nightmaring, like worst day ever, had a fender bender, this, that. I mean, you can't get there from here, right? So when you can get into the daydream, do the daydream mode. And then there's this other part where we're talking about alignment and vibration and all of that. So even though I want you to know, even in those moments where you're depressed or anxious or having a horrible day or your emotional compass is going haywire, you are literally still connected to spirit. You've got the light of the divine in you, no matter what your emotions are saying. It's just easier to feel it sometimes than others. So don't ever let yourself think, oh, I'm so disconnected from God. I'm not hearing spirit. I'm not on the right path. You can never be disconnected from God's source, the divine. It's impossible. One of my best friends is an atheist, and I see the light of God in her every single day. You know, it doesn't even matter because she's just amazing, right? So it's like you cannot disconnect from the light within you because it's truly who you are. You might feel disconnected, but you are never, ever, ever disconnected. All right, let me see what else I have here. Okay.
I just want to say something about the power of daydreaming. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things in the whole wide world to do is to write my daydreams as if they are my reality right now, so that I see it, I'm kinesthetically writing it, I'm feeling it, I'm smelling it, I feel in that moment. And my God, you guys, it's a powerful exercise because I feel like I can command the entire universe when I do that. Things come to me like seriously powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful because that's what your soul does. Your soul daydreams. Your soul's like, oh, this is going to be so fun. This is going to be so fun. I'm looking forward to this. And we get taught at a very young age, like, what were you doing in school? You're looking out the window daydreaming. You should have been paying attention to English or whatever. So at a very young age, we get taught, oh, don't daydream. Daydream's not good. That's a waste of your time. But this is the human construct versus the soul construct. So the humans have a lot of ideas, right? We say, there's not enough in this world. Things are scarce. If you get that, I might not. I need more, right? God forbid you didn't get toilet paper when COVID happened. You know what I mean? Everyone, right? There's just an example of like, humans say things are scarce. Your soul says everything's abundant. There's more than enough of everything. There's enough for everyone on this planet to be millionaires. There truly is, but that's not what our humanness tells us, right? So being aware of that. And in the daydream, you're actually manifesting because you're vibrating with what you want to bring in. because you're like, oh, this is so good. This is going to be so fun. This is going to be so, you know what I mean? And then instead of being like, oh, there's not enough, we all know I could never own a yacht. We all know I could never, okay, well, that's what you're vibrating with. So there is this part where, I guess they call that the law of attraction, which I don't know a lot about that, but your vibration, things match it. And that's why when people are having a bad day, they run into everyone else having a bad day. I had someone in here last week, I was reading for him, and he was saying like, you know, everyone always cuts me off in traffic. And I was like, really? And I was like, I don't ever get cut off in traffic. I started thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, so that's what you're putting out there. Yeah, you're putting that out there. Like, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to have 20 people cut me off between here and Fry's is a mile away, or whatever that looks like. You know, I never have people cut me off. I don't think about it, but that's a reflection of the universe is showing him what he's expecting to see or what he's vibrating at. So being aware of that, but daydreaming is huge, huge, huge. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about, because this part's about the wisdom within, right? And this is about knowing that you're the creator of your reality. And you are, because you have the ability to control how you respond to people, your thoughts and your ideas. And a little bit, we get shaken up sometimes. Somebody will say something like, oh man, that's upsetting. And then you're like, okay, wait a minute. Wait, I can choose to see this from a different angle. So with that wisdom within, that's what I would call tuning into the light within, okay? And checking in with that spark of the divine. And when you do that, here's what you know. Your life can begin again in each moment. And each moment your life begins again. You're not asked to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago. And if anything, it'd be a little disappointing if you were, because you're being asked to grow and grow and grow and step into the light and step into who you are. And my visual of this, our soul is in heaven or in this heavenly realm, right? And the only amount of our soul that's really here in our human body is about our little pinky worth. Everything else is up here in this space where it's fine and it's amazing and happy. And it's just like dipping its toe in the water of life. And that's what this body is. This body anchors our soul here to the earth plane for this short amount of time. So we can dip our toe into the water of life or earth or whatever this is. So when you know that, your whole soul is saying like, you know, I really didn't come here to be afraid. I didn't come here to not partake in life. I didn't come here to play by other people's rules or to be told what to think. I truly came here to have my own experience. And in that, my life begins again every moment. Every moment. Your life starts now. It starts now. It starts now. Let yesterday's story be yesterday's story. It's not today's story. It's not tomorrow's story. It's not next year's story. Right? I mean, how many of you go online and pull up newspapers from 1978 to see what the story of the day was? Once in a while, maybe. Okay, but do you live there? Do you read the whole newspaper from 1978 and do you relive every word and act like that's your story today? It's not, because there's this part where you're like, oh, that's so 1978, right? So you can tap in and tune into it and check in on it. But then you got to come back to the present and you got to go, okay, what's happening today in 2021, right? So it's not that we don't do that with the things that have happened in our lives. Yes, I go back to the day my mom died. Yes, I go back to the day she was diagnosed with cancer, or this day or that day. We do, but you can't live there. You're not supposed to live there. So it's just this little time travel moment, and you go back and then you choose to come back to the moment where your life begins again, right? In that light, in that light. There is that part where I really want you to tune in. So this was funny. When COVID started, I was in this like little phrase of mind where I was just kind of like, oh, this really is just like a video game. This isn't real. Like this life is like a video game, right? And when COVID happened and all three of my kids come home from school and my husband's home every day, I can't tell you how many times in that first week I was like, this isn't real. This isn't real. I'm walking around because I'm watching CNN. My whole life has changed in like 5 seconds. Not that it was bad, but I was just like, this isn't real. This isn't real. So there is that part where I want you to stop during the day when you're having these bad moments and be like, this is somewhat of a simulation, okay? I'm not trying to downplay life because we come here to learn and grow, and it's huge for our soul. But there is this part where your soul's saying, this isn't real. You don't die. You're not, so being aware of those two things is really important. Which leads me to that next thing, which we've all probably heard by now. I am a soul having a human experience, right? So it's always funny when humans are like, oh, I had this spiritual experience. It's like, no, you didn't. You're spirit. You're having the human experience, right? So I really think most people have had these spiritual experiences. Now, they might choose to not believe in them because of fear or because they're logically talking themselves out of it or whatever. But the truth is, this whole world is spiritual, because every living creature here, actually even the trees, and I don't know if I want to say it's a soul, but there's more to a tree than just a piece of wood. There's a vibration, there's an energy, there's a life force within it, right? Everything here is having a spiritual experience. We're just connected to this earth realm in different ways. Okay. Think about this too. Like on your very best day, your brightest day, the day you feel like you accomplished the most, you changed the world for the best, whatever this day is, think about how much light your body, your mind, your spirit felt like it was emitting, or the frequency of it, right? Whatever it is, that really good, feel good thing that you did, okay? And then think about this. In the scope of the divine, that light was just a flicker of the source around you and the energy and the light that you can tap into. So think about bringing that in as you're moving forward. Think about the I am presence is in me. It is in you. And I'm just emitting this light of the divine. Really too, right now, Spirit's telling me, I feel like I'm a little all over the place because Spirit's talking and I'm trying to ignore them because I'm a good medium. I'm just trying to stick to my script. And they're like, no, what about this? And I'm like, I'm trying to stick to the script. But what I would tell you is Spirit is saying right now for me to tell you to remember who you truly are, not the stories that have been told to you. So very, very different, right? Because we get told who we are from the minute we're born. You're a girl, you're small for your size, you're so sweet, you're this, oh, you're feisty, or oh, you're mouthy, or you're sassy, or you're whatever this is, right? So we get told our whole life who we are, and Spirit's saying, no, just remember who you truly are, which is that spark of the divine, which the biggest, brightest day of your life is a flicker compared to what you're capable of. Okay.
I just wanted to butt in again. Where you're saying about choosing, that's huge, absolutely huge. And instead of I have to, I've got to, I've just and it's taken time to keep focused on it because I'll still go, I gotta.
Right.
But the I choose to opens up a whole new world, and everything becomes I choose as opposed to my obligation, or
Yes.
those words that are really heavy and kind of down-putting. So by choosing, the whole world opens up.
Yeah, the opportunities are endless when you can choose, right? It's
The
like
other thing I was going to say was, if you've lived a certain way for a certain period of time, and you know, but you're not practicing, and you start to change your everything to joy, to the universe will throw things in front of you just to make sure you're serious. Test your sense of humor. Just, you sure you want this? Boom. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I know. So that's awesome. So let me bring up a little personal experience I had. Okay. So when I told you I felt like my mediumship started when I was 12, my mom, before she transitioned, she said to me, Michelle, I've been thinking about this. And she said, I think you could do this before you were born. And I said, what? She said, the night that you were born, Michelle, she said, I said to you, if you're ready, baby, So am I. And within the hour, I went into labor. She said, so I think this is that soul connection that you've always had. And it's true. We've always had that soul connection, right? So a couple weeks ago, this is so exciting. So I'm just going to share this with you guys because I haven't put this out on social media or anything like that. But a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about what my mom said. And I said, okay, Spirit. I said, if you're ready, so am I. Within the week, I got invited to be on George Norrie. I'll be on George Norrie in June. He's got like 5 million listeners. I got invited to be on Suzanne Geisman's radio show. I got invited to be on Open to Hope, which has 1 million listeners. I got invited to be on, I've got like 2 more podcasts I got invited to be on. All I had to do was ask and tell Spirit, if you're ready, Spirit, I'm ready. And you are right. It was just this opening where I felt like they were like, Michelle, like, thank you for finally showing up to participate in your life, because we've had plans and now you're here. Yeah, but that sense of humor, the universe does have a sense of humor. And so I will tell you, in those moments, and I don't like to say surrender because I don't feel like I surrendered at all to Spirit. What I felt like is I said, if you're ready, Spirit, I'm ready to actively participate in my life. And they said, absolutely. Oh, and I got invited to LA to do a meet and greet in the fall. So it's just like all of these things within like one statement. So let me just tell you, if you're going to say, if you're ready, Spirit, so am I, be prepared, because the floodgates opened. The floodgates open. But if I can do that, you can do that, because I'm you and you're me, and we're all mediums and we're all souls having this human experience. So if anything, just use it to inspire you. It's like, oh, if that can happen for her, it can happen to me, and more and more.
It's crazy. Once you invited me to this and I was like, yeah, I'm all in. I'm so excited. 2 minutes, I'm not even kidding, like within like 2 to 5 minutes after we talked, my friend texted me saying, oh, I have this really great self-actualization seminar next week. And then my other friend got me this book, and I'm going, this is really weird, but then that kind of makes sense. Is it like when you open yourself, it's like it'll all kind of come together? Interesting.
It does.
And congratulations, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a big summer. I mean, by the end of the summer, I literally will have reached millions of people. I can't even fathom it, right? I know. So it's so exciting. And that's the part where I want to stop and smell the roses, where I want to enjoy the journey, because like these things are already there. And Spirit's like, that's going to be great where you get there, but don't forget to daydream and play and enjoy it now, even though you're not at that moment yet. And so I want that for all of you, because that's where we manifest more. That's where we vibrate higher. That's where the universe matches us and says, oh, you like that? Let me give you some more of that, right? So choosing to play in the magic of life, whether it's the cup of coffee, some exciting news, whatever it is. Too often we brush stuff off, right? We choose to live in the bad moments for a long time. We can drag those on for days. We can still be mad today about what someone said to us last week, last year, 10 years ago, right? But what about the good moments? We need to learn to drag those on. We need to learn to live in that energy, to live in that excitement more, because that is what is like a magnet for what we want. We want more of that. And so that's those moments where you say to the universe, this or better. And opening up to Spirit and opening up to God, source, the divine, and saying, I am so excited for the plans you have for me, and just letting them reveal themselves is always an amazing way to go. Because I do believe, and I think it was Oprah who said this, that God has bigger plans for you than you could imagine for your own life, right? Or something along those lines. That is so true. Our human plans, when you dream as big as you can dream, they are a fraction of what God is dreaming for you. So choose to play in that magic of life. It's so huge, right? And then remembering you are the creator of your reality. You really are. And so maybe someone cuts you off in the line at Starbucks or whatever, and you're just like, okay, well, maybe they're in a hurry today. It wasn't personal. They just needed to get there sooner. And I'm okay, because today I have an extra 5 minutes, or whatever that looks like, instead of like internalizing that. Of course they cut me off. I always get cut off, right? It's like, where do you want to go? You have the choice to do that, the choice to do that. Okay, let me see what else I have here. Okay, when you are in a situation where you are, it's hard sometimes, right, to see the silver lining on things. Sometimes we're saying like, this is really a difficult situation. There is no silver lining, but there is always a silver lining. And so I want to ask you to look for that on those days where you're having a bad day or when you're having a hard time. You can use visual reminders. What's the silver lining? I don't know. Maybe you find a penny in the parking lot that day from your grandma in spirit, right? And you're like, okay, spirit's just letting me know that I'm together with them still. And looking for the silver lining is going to be really important, because that's where I want you to focus. I don't want you to focus on the storm cloud. I want you to focus on the silver lining, and you have that opportunities. And really one big thing I want to bring across today, which I'm trying to, is that your soul creates miracles. Miracles happen every single day. People see them, they happen, they know someone they've happened to. People call it miracles. And what is that? That's your soul stepping into its power. It's just bringing in a little bit more light, a little more energy, a little bit more space. So even if it looks like a storm cloud, whatever that silver lining is, that's where your soul needs to focus. Because that's where you are creating your own reality, right? And living in the desert like I do, a little bit of rain, that's not a bad thing. A lot of rain's not a bad thing, right? So it's just kind of like, okay, but knowing how you're going to move through it. And then the other thing I want to talk about with that, with the silver lining part, is, okay, and this is, the spirit's taking me, I don't know why they're taking me off my notes. I'm not really happy about that, but they don't care. The spirit is saying, so they're showing me, okay, so for example, in my own life, my mom's personal transition, very difficult for me, right? But what was the silver lining? She wasn't suffering from cancer anymore. She was able to be whole. She was able to be at peace. And I'm still connected with her. I still have this relationship with her. So even though it's not the way I would prefer it, I would like her in a body until she's 110 or whatever that looks like. The energy is, though, there was a silver lining. And who am I to take away her and bring her back here to make her suffer and go through what she was going through, when she can still be connected to me and my kids and everyone in her life and be at peace and be whole, right? So there is a silver lining. Even for parents who have kids that transition, it's really, really hard for them to see a silver lining. And I will tell you, that is the most difficult group for me to work with. Not difficult because they're difficult, but like my heart breaks the most for them, right? I'm the most connected to that. And I can't believe I just can't imagine. But there's always a silver lining. And so even for the people whose loved ones have transitioned by suicide, suicide is actually a last act of hope, a hope that it will get better, that it will be better. And I've never had someone come through who has transitioned that way and not been better. So even when you're looking at their life story and you're saying, oh, you know, they were manic depressive, they had this hard life, whatever this is, the silver lining is that they are at peace and whole now in a way that they could have never have been here. And how can you take that away from them? Or how can you wish that away? I mean, you really can't, right? So silver linings, even in really, really hard situations, there are going to be silver linings. And that's where you focus, because there's peace in that. And there's a lot of truth in that. Okay. So I know Jamie's going to talk to you guys about making your own mediumship connections and psychic evolution and all of that. So I'm really excited for that. So I don't want to touch on that too much. But I will tell you this. Your loved ones, your angels, your life guides, your spirit team, they are literally a thought away. So just know when you're thinking about them, it's like, ding, you just sent them a text and they're like, oh, okay, what's going on? Are they there every moment? No, right? I've had people who are like, I'm a newlywed. I really don't want to think my mom's next to me all the time. Like, okay, I get that. I wouldn't want to think that either. You know what I mean? Yes, no, they don't need to be there every moment of your life. But like they understand humans want some privacy here and there. So it's not that at all. But there is this part where they know when you're thinking about them, they know when you're going through a difficult time. They have some psychic ability. They know what's coming up in your life. So a lot of times when I'm reading for people, I'll have, you know, your mom, your grandma, whoever tell me, hey, tell them in 6 months, this is going to happen. I'm like, okay, I don't know why, but your mom's telling me to tell you this, right? I had a lady I read for, and this just tells you how connected your people are to you. She came over and she was like, I got offered a different position at work and I really don't want it. And I said, okay. I said, well, you have free will. You don't have to take it. But I said, your dad is saying you should take the job, but I really don't want that job. I'm happy. I said, okay, you don't have to take it, but your dad is telling me to tell you, take the job, right? So I guess she accepted the job. 2 weeks later, she called me and she said, Michelle, she said, if I had not taken that job, I would be unemployed. They eliminated my position. And she said, so although I didn't really want the job, at least now I still have a job while I look for something else. So your people, your spirit team, your angels, your life guides, they're always around you, trying to guide you in the right direction. So sometimes we make choices and we don't know why we do it, but then you're like, well, I'm sure glad I did that. Have no doubt that's your loved ones and your angels and your life guides guiding you. Like, we know you don't understand this, but we can see what's coming and this is where you need to be. So having that faith in those in your team, in your spirit team, right? Because we all have that. And so often we feel like we're living this life alone. We feel very isolated. It's me against the world. No one understands me. I'm on this island, right? But if you could only see the number of souls and beings of light around us trying to help us navigate this world, none of us signed up to really come in here alone. It feels like we did, but we didn't. I truly believe in pre-life planning. I believe your soul had an idea, it had a plan, it had some things it wants to see happen. And with that, you have angels that were assigned to you. You have life guides that were assigned to you. You have ancestors you never knew who were assigned to help you complete this mission, right? And we come in and all of a sudden we're in this illusion of like, it's just me in this whole world. I'm all alone. No one knows what I'm going through. They don't know where I've been. They haven't walked in my shoes. That's correct, but you are not ever alone, right? And nobody, and I've had this a lot come up with COVID. So many people have come to me and said, my dad died alone. My mom died alone. My aunt died alone. I said, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. No one ever dies alone. Even if you're in the middle of the Sahara Desert by yourself, you will never die alone. You will always be greeted by loved ones, ancestors, angels, life guides. And I know this for a fact because when I was possibly transitioning for the third time, I had 3 life guides. I didn't know who they were, but I saw the angel come in. I didn't see my grandma or my grandpa or family, but there was no moment where I was alone. Right? There wasn't. I was always talked through it and walked through it with compassion, love, and this unconditional completeness that I can't even describe in our human words. So it's just remembering that and asking for the signs. So whether that is send me a feather, send me this, send me that, knowing, being open, because they're always going to show you you're not alone. It's an illusion that we have bought into and we've done it really, really well. Oh, you've got a feather. There you go. Proof, right? And I will tell you this too. So this is interesting. When we were, I was on Irene Weinberg and we did a group reading. We had 60 or 70 people on there. And there were a couple of different people. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, your mom sends you butterflies or whoever sends you butterflies, right? Or hummingbirds. And so I got done and one of my friends watched the replay and was like, do you realize you read 10 people and you told 3 of them they were getting butterflies? And I said, well, no, I didn't realize that. Because when I'm in that state where I'm channeling and connecting, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. And I said, that makes sense because the way that works is we have certain vibrations on this planet, which is what we're talking about. Butterflies and hummingbirds vibrate very highly. So what your loved one does is your loved one's energy with the hummingbird, it says, are you okay flying in front of my loved one so I can send them a sign? And the hummingbird says, yes, because I get a boost of energy and that feels good. And the next thing you know, a hummingbird buzzes your head. You know what I mean? So it's not like, yes, you know what, you all can get butterflies. It's true. You can all, and so it might sound overused, but the vibrations on this planet, there are certain things that are easier to blend with. And hummingbirds and butterflies are some of them, and dolphins, so that's how your loved one sends you signs, right? And you're like, well, how do I always find pennies? I don't know, but your loved one always is able to place it right where you're going to be, or different things like that. So a lot of people do get the same signs, but that's because they're easy to blend with for our loved ones. So it's easy to send that to you. Do you guys have any questions? Gosh, it's already been another hour.
My question was just, I think I wrote it back here, how you're saying like, like if you're saying like, okay, this isn't real, it's gonna pass, all of that, and like your vibrational frequency and emotional compass, how do you, I guess, get your mind in the right place if you are going through a trauma?
Yeah.
If
So
you're going through something really hard, how do you train yourself to still match with the higher frequency?
right. And that's exactly it. The word train. You are training your mind, right? Usually our mind controls us, but you are now taking control of your mind. So it starts with the little things on good days, right? It starts with the little things and then you work your way up to bigger situations. But by taking deep breaths, by being present, by feeling in the moment, there have been times where I've literally, for whatever reason, not been feeling good. And I've asked my angels, will you please come in and take this feeling from me? And I literally will feel it lift. So asking for help and saying, if this isn't mine to carry, I don't want to carry it, and you'd be amazed how much stuff will be taken off. The other thing about that is when we move from our human construct about, oh my God, they're suffering so much and that's so horrible. And listen, I get that. I see so many people, they are suffering so much and it's so horrible. And the human part of me hates that. I have to take it to the next level, which is the soul part that says, but on a soul level, they're okay. And what is their soul trying to learn? Because our human mind isn't going to be able to answer what the soul knows, because we just don't have that capability, if that makes sense. So being able to move it up. And then the other thing I'll tell you that I like do this a lot with people is I will imagine, so when I'm working with a client and I don't feel like I could get them exactly what they needed or get them where I want them to be, I will truly imagine wrapping them in love and light and laying them at the foot of God. Because energetically, I have just done something and there is truly no better place that I can put them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that I will do, because sometimes I just feel like I can't get to certain needs that people have, whether it's time or maybe they're not ready to go there, whatever, but there's no better place. And you are doing something because you're sending them the energy, right? And that's why prayers work. Prayers work because prayers are energy. So whether you're praying the rosary or you're just praying or whatever that looks like for you, you're literally sending good energy. You're sending, when you're saying, please God, take care of whoever because of this or that, you're truly sending energy. So I just like that visual of literally, it's almost like a sheet swirling around them of light and love and then laying them at the foot of God. Mm-hmm. All right, you guys, you want to take a little break here? I cannot hear you, Jamie.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, let's take a little break. See you in 10. All right.
Jennifer, I like the backdrop behind your couch.
Oh, thank
So
you.
pretty.
My macrame.
I like macrame. That's what they call it. Pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. I
I
appreciate
too,
that.
like, what is that? So pretty.
Decorate my house.
Thank you. I was going for that little boho vibe.
So cute. I just have great. That's
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I wanted to ask along the lines that you ended up with others suffering, how I tend to be a person that right away jumps into the empathizing, what they must be feeling, going through. I have a friend whose husband just received a diagnosis, and he's 30, he's very young. He had a reoccurrence of a rare nasal cancer. And what I'm wondering, I love the image you gave of wrapping them in love and light, but how do you keep your own character from just getting sucked into that? Like, your heart breaks for them, you worry, and that's all fear. That's low vibrational. And so how can I keep my vibration so it's actually helping them? You know what I mean?
Right. So that's a really good question. So one thing that I talk to a lot of empaths about is being aware. So a lot of people will say, I feel your pain. I feel your worry. I feel your stress. I feel your anxiety, whatever this is, right? But that's not beneficial to you. That's like going through the airport and you're carrying your suitcase and everybody else's suitcase clones, and then you carry theirs too, and then it clones
Right.
and they still have to carry it, right? So some of that is changing the verbiage. So saying, I'm aware that they are suffering. I'm aware that they're feeling depressed. So changing it to, I'm aware, not I feel this for them or I'm feeling their pain. That's important. The other thing I would say, honestly, the best thing you can do right now is hold the space that God, source, the divine, the universe can always provide miracles. So instead of buying into the whole diagnosis, although it's legitimate, yes, he's got some issues he's working through right now, you're always holding that space and that hope and that faith that there's a God, a source, whatever, universe that is capable of curing that or making this work out for their highest good.
Okay, that's
But
awesome. Thank you.
the human part of it, yes, we get sucked into it. We do. And that's human and that's fine. But our power in helping miracles happen is not in the human part, it's in the soul and in the space that we hold and in that permission. So we can say, oh, I'm suffering. I'm so sad for them. I wish they weren't going through this. But I know that there's something divine, bigger than any of us, that can absolutely cure this. Whether that happens or not, it's not our decision, because those things happen on that soul level, right? I do believe. So it's interesting because I've asked the angels before. I'm like, well, is it free will? Is it predestination? Is it like, what is it, right? And they said, yes, yes, and more stuff that you don't understand. So there is some of all of that. So let's talk about that for a minute, okay? What happens is, and I don't know that I believe every illness someone has is related to a spiritual issue. I don't. But I believe a miracle can happen in any illness, no matter how that's created. So we come to earth, body, mind, spirit. The body part is, well, we have some genetics. My mom had breast cancer. I have higher risk of that, right? Or maybe somebody had diabetes or someone has heart conditions. So there's a genetic component. That's the body. The mind is, we choose to eat. We choose how we're going to eat. We choose how we're going to exercise. We choose if we're going to have a positive attitude. We choose if we're going to have a negative attitude, right? And then there's the spirit, which is saying, I will always hold the space for your highest good in this human form, right? And so as we're doing this, we're moving through the three. Well, a lot of times people get disconnected and so they know genetically, yeah, my dad had a heart attack and his dad had a heart attack. And so I probably shouldn't be having the In-N-Out burger for lunch, but I'm going to have one every day this week, or, whatever this is. So it's combining it back into the whole is where we see healing happen. So when we say free will, predestination, all of those things, okay, some of it is predestined. Like some people do have genetic markers for certain things that are at higher risk, but it doesn't mean it's etched in stone because we still have our mind and our spirit. So it's just a
Right.
possibility. So we come into this life and we say, because I do believe in pre-life planning, we say, okay, we knew we were coming in this body, which would have a higher risk for that, but I have these two things that will balance it. We know that we are coming into this life with this father who's an alcoholic. So if I start drinking at age 16, there's a good chance I'll be an alcoholic by the time I'm 19 or whatever this is, right? So the free will is the decisions we make that we're given the ability to make, but we have some other stuff involved. Now, here's the interesting thing. I want to just share this with you, and I want to take what works for you. I've talked to, I don't know if any of you know Mark Ehrlichs. He's a phenomenal healer. And I asked him, because I love to ask people that I think are in the know questions, right? And I said to him, well, what is it? Is it free will or predestination, right? And he said, this is what it is. He says, your free will is how much you're going to chase your tail before you get to the predestination. Like your soul will accomplish its mission. The free will is how much are you going to chase your tail until you get there. Then with my other friend, I said to him, okay, his name's Al Fuentes. I said, is it free will or is it predestination? And he said, it's both. He said, this is what happens. Imagine like 3 different mazes. He says, when you start making human choices, it puts you in a certain maze, right? And so now you're in maze number 1 because you chose this, this, and this. And he says, and you can't get out of that on the human level until you go to the soul level and you can see the whole picture. And that's where your free will is, because when you rise above the human level, then you can see the possibilities and opportunities. And I don't even know how I got on all of that, but I want you guys to think about that, because I don't want to say, like, I don't think that my mom, her soul chose for her to die of breast cancer. And she literally had cancer for 20 years. So she went through so many chemos, so many radiations, so many surgeries, so many blood transfusions, so many, like it was a horrific 20 years. Okay. I don't think on a soul level, her soul chose that. I think she had a disposition to it. And then once she got diagnosed, she absolutely owned it and was like, oh, I'm doomed. I'm going to die of breast cancer. And she couldn't get above that. And at the same time, I want to say that her soul was always holding the space for a miracle. So your job, when you see someone you love who's suffering, is to hold the space for a miracle. Because when somebody gets the diagnosis of cancer, it's very hard to hold that space for themselves because they get like hit by a truck, right?
Right.
What was your
So
question?
I'm a little bit confused if you're, because I always thought that one of the things you have to consider, like for my friend, is that maybe they did sign up for this, maybe. So that's possible, right?
That is possible. That is
and so
possible.
you hold the space, but you can't say what the plan is.
No, because I do also think our soul plan is not like concrete. So I do think we get here. We make free will choices that change it. And the universe is ever evolving and our soul is. And so I also think our soul plans change and grow along our life path. Now, probably not extreme, but there are tweaks and turns and things that change, right? So now in that situation, that's very difficult because you could never look at your friend and say, oh, I think your soul chose to have cancer, because he would be like, what? Who would choose that? You know what I mean? And I get that. And so I don't necessarily think that his soul chose that. I think he knew there was a possibility of it when he came in, and his soul still chose to come.
So for your mom, you feel like she got caught up in the human spiral of, I got this diagnosis and I'm doomed, and she couldn't get above it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about that story. So she had like her breast was dimpling and for 2 years before they found the cancer. And she had actually had a dream that a voice told her she had breast cancer. And so they did the mammograms for 2 years. They do them like every couple months. The type of cancer she had couldn't be seen on the mammogram. So they accidentally found it by a needle biopsy, literally just happened to get a sample of it, right? But she had had this intuition and this knowing, like she literally had a voice in a dream tell her, you have breast cancer. And yet she would do what the doctors told her. And then she was also an RN. So my mom was also logical and Western medicine and all of that stuff. And then they diagnosed it. By the time they diagnosed it, she had had it for 2 years and it had moved to her lymph nodes. So that makes it more difficult to treat, right? But they went in, they were aggressive, they did everything they could, and then she did go into remission. But in her mind, she had decided she was going to die of breast cancer. So whether that was because she knew the statistical odds, because she was an RN, or because of whatever that is, she had internalized that. And so I did take her to Sarah O'Meara, the lady in Paradise Valley where I got my healing once, but my mom only went once. And she was like, well, nothing happened. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, but just because, you know, God doesn't work on our timeline, God works on God's timeline, right? And so there's that energy where I saw that she was almost close to a miracle, right, happening. And the thing is, we call these miracles, but Spirit, the universe, they call it happenings. They don't call it miracles. In their human world, it's a miracle. For them, it's just another happening, right? So holding that space for my mom and holding the light around her and, you know, asking for her to have less suffering, asking for this to be the easiest road possible and doing those things that I could do, that was all I could do because I couldn't go through the treatments for her, you know, and on and on. So with that being said, yes, I do think to some extent in her mind, she shut the door to a miracle being possible.
Thank you.
I don't think miracles are withheld from people. I think we withhold them from ourselves. But I don't believe in a God, a universe, a divine source that is withholding that healing from you. But we get in our own way and we withhold the healing from ourselves.
Well,
But however, yes, some people might plan on coming here and choosing to transition that way, because at the end of the day, none of us are leaving here with this bodies. We are all getting out of here alive. We are all leaving into a more wholeness and more completeness than we've ever known, but we're not taking our bodies with us. So there will always be that way. Even at some point when they have a vaccine for cancer, there will still be people that die of cancer because that's the way that they chose they wanted to leave. The other thing that I would say about that is think about when you have someone going through an illness like that, through the treatment and everything, think about the ripple out effects that it has on the world in a positive way, in the silver lining way. What about the guy who says, you know what, that could happen to me. I'm going to straighten up. I'm going to be a better partner. I'm going to be a better dad. I'm going to do this. So there's always a positive effect, even when it just seems like it might not be there. There is. And, or maybe it's someone who goes and gets scanned sooner and they catch it and then it's not a problem, right? So there's always going to be a positive. Think about these situations as a coin. There's the front of the coin and there's the back of the coin, right? So you're like, okay, I see the head on the coin and this is pretty ugly. This is called cancer and this is scary and the treatment looks horrific. But what's the backside? The backside is maybe this gentleman's family is going to learn to appreciate the value of good health more, that they're going to make more for their life. Maybe his child is going to say, you know what, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to cure cancer because my dad had to go through that, right? So there is this ripple effect. When we plan our lives, when we do pre-birth planning, one, it's for our soul. That's our main goal. How is our soul going to grow here? But don't underestimate how we look at incorporating that into the highest good for all living creatures.
awesome.
And so sometimes we take one for the team, knowing that in the long run, it will pay off big time for the good of humanity.
Mhm.
So do you mind me asking, did your mom have inflammatory breast cancer by chance?
She had, no, it was not inflammatory. I don't think it was inflammatory. It was called invasive lobular and invasive ductal.
Oh, okay. My sister had inflammatory breast cancer, so I asked, and it wasn't detectable on a mammogram, and it had dimples. That's why I asked, like, oh, that's my sister.
Yeah. So there are different ones that are not detectable on the mammograms. Exactly. And Yeah. So, but here's the thing: if she had listened to, like, in a dream, Spirit told her in a dream, you have breast cancer, 2 years before they diagnosed it. So that's listening to Spirit whispering you and guiding you. And in my mom's defense, she did everything she medically knew she could do, but she was very much, Western medicine, and she was someone who thought miracles happened for other people, right? Miracles don't happen in my life; they happen for other people. And so there's that part where we have to check our mind, because it's a huge component of the body, mind, spirit, and the wholeness and the healing happens when all three merge. The night I got my healing, I was not there even for myself. I was there with my friend who had cancer, and I wanted her to get this miracle so bad, but I believed it was so possible that I went with her, right? And then I was the one who received it. And there was a little bit of almost like survivor's guilt, because I was like, but I could have lived the way I was. And she ended up passing from cancer a couple years after that. You know what I mean? And so there was this part. But what that showed me, it was the opening. It was that I had the faith, that I knew without a doubt a miracle was possible, that I was willing to be there on a soul level. I was ready there. My body was there. And I was like, yes, this can happen. It's just, I wasn't asking it for me. I was asking it for her. But I already believed it was possible. And I do believe it's possible. And I will continue to. I have another friend whose 15-year-old son had brain cancer, and it came back. They gave him, this was in 2019, 6 weeks to live, and he's still here. And it's, it's horrible what they're going through and what he's going through, but he's still here, right? That's a miracle. So miracles happen. They really do. And the minute we say miracles don't happen, or only this or only that, then we're limiting ourselves.
On limiting ourselves, the other thing I want to say is don't quantify your desires. I want $1,000 today, or I'm ready for all of the abundance that the universe is bringing towards me. So just the keeping it focused, and I went off left field on that one.
No, but I agree. I mean, just being open.
Yeah.
Being open is really important, because the minute you say that can't happen for me, you've just shut the door on possibilities, right? And I always think of it this way: we have nothing to lose by hope, right? And I am truly that person. Hope dies last. It will die last, period. I am like going to my grave. I'll be still like, okay, God, maybe I can squeak out 5 more years, or whatever that looks like, if that's what I want, But I'm just saying, I will always be that person. But that's because of everything that I've seen and experienced in my life. I know that hope dies last. I know that I've had 3 near-death experiences. I know that twice somehow I was able to stay, out of those times. And so I see miracles happen. And I think a lot of times miracles happen and we don't see them. What about the lump in your breast you never knew about, that dissolved and resolved and it's gone? What about this? What about that? So truly, that miracles happen every day? Absolutely. And you should expect nothing less, because if you do, you're limiting yourself.
I even think sometimes, like, the bad things, like, oh my God, I'm running late for work. And then I always try to reframe it and say, but maybe that was God's way of saving me from a bad car accident. Is that kind of the same idea? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Right. Because we don't know what we don't know, but what you can assume, and you can assume it with 100% faith, is that the universe has your back and is on your side and wants the best for you. So whether that's your angels, your loved ones, your life guide, the whole package, they're all always wanting the best for you. Right. And yeah, so holding that space. So Carrie, back to like what we started with, holding the space for him, for hope, healing, love, and miracle is absolutely the number one thing you can do.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate that. It's a lot to, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, because on our human side, there's not as much that we can do, but your soul's really powerful, right? And so I'll even suggest to certain clients, when they say, I'm having a really hard time with whatever, my partner, my dad or whatever, I said, well, you need to talk to them on a soul level. And they're like, what is that? That's a soul to soul conversation. So that's like you wait till that person's sleeping or just whatever. And you let your soul talk to their soul and you say, you know what? I wish we weren't in this place. I know things are difficult. Let's come back together. Let's make this happen or whatever it is. So you're not actually talking to their humanness because you're talking to their soul, because that's where the source of their power is. It's in their soul.
Wow. That's amazing.
Our humanness is not our source of power. Not at all. Our humanness, when your soul decides to leave, your body drops. Boom, gone. Done, right? So it's not your humanness where your power is contained. It's truly in your soul and your intention and your love. All right, so let's wrap this up. I've had so much fun with you guys this morning, so thank you for joining me. All right, kind of just a summary here. So your soul will naturally cause you to ask for more in life. Right? Because you're going to get bored with your job. You're going to be tired of eating on this diet. You're going to, whatever it is, your soul naturally causes you to ask for more. That's because it's perfect timing, because your soul wants to grow, wants to evolve, wants to continue through life. So wrapping this up, remember this, your soul is brilliant, which means you are brilliant, which means it is your time to fly. So whatever that looks like in your life, it is your time to step out of fear and make a decision from love. It is your time to reach for the star. It is your time to do that. Daydreaming, going to the thoughts that feel good, and being conscious about what you allow in your life. So boundaries are a beautiful tool, right? When you have that friend who always drains you and wants the Debbie Downer and talk about how horrible things are, you're like, okay, we don't need to talk this week. I'll just shoot you a text telling you I'm thinking about you. Hope you have a good week, right? Not cutting that off, but it's a beautiful boundary because now you are consciously allowing what you're going to allow in your life. Think about, where am I spending my time and my energy? Right? So you could sit on the couch all day and we know where you spent your time, but where did you spend your energy? Was it worrying about this, worrying about that, being mad about this? Where are you spending your time and your energy? That's a huge, huge tool for you. Giving yourself permission to outgrow people, places, and situations, right? We talked about this earlier. So I want you to ask yourself as you're moving forward, what does this person, place, or situation bring to the table? What do they bring to the table? And now, we're, as women, because we're all women, we're gonna be like, oh my God, that's so selfish. How could you ask that? Naturally, you should just give everything you have to that person and let them run off with it, right? Because women are trained like this. So let me give you this example. If we're going to a family birthday party, or not even a family, close friends, and I say to my husband, aren't you coming? And he's like, no, I just want to watch the football game. No one would say that is selfish because he's a man and he wants to sit on the couch and watch a football game. But if I said, no, I'm not going, I don't feel like going to the party, everyone would be like, how dare you? Did you forget that they sent you a Christmas card last year? What about the time when they picked your sick kid up from school, or whatever this is, right? Ladies, it's time to think a little bit more like men, and it's okay because we have let the world guilt us long enough into what a woman should do, think, and act like. And it's time to say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't serve me right now. That doesn't serve my highest good. So as you're bringing people, places, and situations in your life, it's absolutely okay and necessary for you to get to where you want to be, to say, what does this person, place, or situation bring to the table? Because I promise you, every man asks himself that in some way, shape, or form before he says yes to anything. Anything. And we're okay with that. So it's okay for us to do that too. I'm not bashing men. I'm just saying, give yourself the same permission that you give the men in your life, right? Without the guilt. Okay, maybe that's the Catholic in me, the Catholic guilt. I'm like, oh God, I said no, I shouldn't say no. Oh, I better go. No, it's okay to say no. Okay. Then I want to say, allow yourself to be a new person each day. You are not supposed to be the same person today that you were yesterday, that you were last week, that you were last year. You're not. You are constantly evolving and growing. It's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. It would be stifling for your soul if you were the same person today you were 10 years ago. Absolutely. just like stifling, be like, well, that was a waste of 100 years, right? I mean, that's not what you're supposed to be doing here. You're growing. Okay, the other thing that I want to tell you is for a lot of us, we do not feel at home in our life, right? So we create a life that looks good or it looks like it should, but it doesn't actually feel like at home. We're hanging out with the people we should hang out with. We're chasing the dreams we're supposed to chase. We're getting the education we're supposed to get. We're doing this, we're being that, we're doing that, but it's not really at home. It's not the life you would create. I want to give you permission today to create the life that you love, your life. You're not creating the life that looks good on Instagram or in someone else's world or on someone else's checklist. This is the life that you feel at home in. And what that's going to look like is going to look as different as every one of our backgrounds right now, as every one of our faces, as every one of our, clothing closets look, all of that stuff. It's supposed to be unique to you. There's not the right life. So create your life so that you feel at home in your life. Our souls are only here for less than 100 years. So it's really important to create a place where we feel at home to grow and express and be ourselves, because this is that school of life. And we did come here to learn and grow. Okay, here's the other thing on those bad days, because you're going to have those bad days. I had this lady, she's 94. She did a reading for me and her name's Renee, and she's just absolutely amazing. And she said to me that Jesus came to her in the reading and he said to her, Michelle, your motto is onward always. And that is truly my motto now. So I don't care how bad my day is, how good my day is, it is onward always, because I can't live in yesterday. I can't live in the past. I can't live in that bad conversation. I can't live in what you did to me and I did to you. Onward always, focusing your energy on your future. And in the present moment, right? Onward always. Make that part of your motto. It's very empowering because you're like, onward always, right? There's always tomorrow. Going to that place, which we talked about earlier, the place or the space where you can be at comfort, that you know what you know. That is huge. That is going to empower you like nothing else. I don't have to know why. Like if I'm in a building and everyone's telling me it's fine and it's on fire, and I think it's on fire, I'm going to run out of there before 100 other people know it, because I just know something's not right, right? How many times do you get in the elevator and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have got in with this like creepy guy in the corner over here or whatever, right? Just knowing what you know, honoring that and being true for it, because your compass of life, your soul, is guiding you and directing you on which way to go and what works for you. So being open to that. And then being open to the fact that the universe has so many unlimited ways of making what you want happen. It's unbelievable. Like the things that have happened, look back at your life. This will be fun. Look back at your life at some big experience you had. It's something, one of those game changer experiences, okay? Something where you're like, oh, I got into this school, or I got that job, or I met this person, or whatever that is. In the moment, we don't usually know that that's a game changer. But I can tell you, I've had experiences where I was like, that happened. That was interesting. I thought it was fun. I had no idea that step was going to lead to this. And this is so big, right? So knowing that if you look back, it's hard to see it in the minute and in the future, but take good experiences from your life and look at how the dots connect, how the universe had a huge plan for you in that moment. You never had any idea that meeting that person that day was going to change the course of your life for the better, right? Or what would come out of that. So knowing that, and then being that vibrational match of what you're seeking. So spending your time daydreaming, paying attention to that emotional compass. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm fearful. Okay, that's not really working for me. I know what I don't want. Now focusing on what you do want, because that's that vibration, and that will help you bring in what you want, because you are brilliant. Your soul is brilliant. And it's really time to bring in the life that you want to live. You create your own reality. That's kind of what I have for you. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions. I know we're done a little bit early, but you'll have a little extra long lunch.
I just wanted to say I have a little page that I do a live on. Thank you, Jamie. 28-day live challenge. And every day I end off with, and remember, you're beautiful, you're brilliant, We all are.
Mhm.
And I keep telling them that during the conversation is miracles do come true. Dream big because they do come true.
Mhm.
And I know they do.
They do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I wish I could have a recording of you saying that every morning.
You're going to have it. I think Jamie's recording.
Oh, that's right. Perfect. Then I'm just going to replay that every morning, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That was amazing.
You are so welcome. Thank you. All right, you guys.
Go ahead.
It's been
Thank
such
you
a
so
pleasure.
much.
It really has. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah,
For
Huge.
every time
Thank
we-
you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, every
Thank
time
you.
we-
Guys, thank you for being here. As I said earlier, I will create one page for all of us to reference to reach out to each of these amazing speakers.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much for being here. Have a
Thank you.
fabulous rest of your Sunday.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You too. Bye.
And I'll see you
Thank you,
guys back
Michelle.
here at 2 or 1:40 if you want to join the meditation.
Awesome.
1 hour. Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, guys.
Damn. Well,